Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ashland Planning Board meeting, February 9th, 2023. On our agenda tonight, I think is actually, well, two public hearings. One of them has asked for a continuance, and then we also have a scenic road decision we are going to be going through, and probably then just some discussion by the planning board on various topics that have been sitting on our agenda for quite a while and never get any time on a meeting because we've been too busy with other things. So our agenda is going to be slightly out of order this evening because we do need to wait for member Marcelo Roja to be able to join us for the continued public hearing for 399 Union Street. So, well, first of all, let's have I should call the meeting to order. It was 7:16 when we actually went on, so I'll call the meeting to order. And we can also first have the clerk report. Kate, do you have something tonight?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have received 6 correspondence by email since the 1/26 meeting. Possibly the time later in the meeting, I do want to ask the board just the response on the Tower Road historic preservation, but we don't need to talk about that now.
Yeah, and just a question for you, Kate. At one point, you were keeping a spreadsheet of various correspondences and if they had been responded to, or if it was something Peter needed to respond to, or is that still ongoing? Are you still? I haven't needed to respond to anything for a while, so I wanted to make sure I was getting any emails that I should be.
I do owe Peter. That's one of them that probably would be Peter, and another one that we got a follow-up today from somebody. It is really the specific, but if we have time, that could be a clerk, but not under our standard what's authorized. So that would be another one that perhaps could be a clerk response.
Okay, so just yeah, whenever you see those, just give the appropriate person a heads up about what needs to be done, so we stay on top of that, because I thought the spreadsheet was a good idea that you had maintained. All right, then moving on, Peter, if we're going to delay 399 Union Street just a little bit until Marcelo is able to come on, what's best for us to move up to the front, I guess?
Well, I think we can move up the requested continuance for 301 Pond Street, which is the special permit site plan approval. This is a development at Shaw's that everyone has kind of seen. And the last meeting on January 12th, we did continue it to tonight. With that said, at the last meeting, the planning board and the applicant agreed that we would renotice and republish that public hearing notice, indoor notice. That was done. It was put in the newspaper, the Metro West newspaper, and the notice was reposted and sent out to all the butters. So that was completed. However, leading up this meeting, the applicant, in this case, has requested a 2-month continuance. That letter was circulated to the planning board this past Friday, and Ramey Schneider, I think Ramey, is it Schneider? I'm not.
Schneider.
Schneider, okay. Is here, and she represents Wynn, who is the applicant, and I've asked her to kind of join the meeting, just to kind of talk to the planning board if needed, or if the planning board had any questions about the requested continuance. So at this time, I would hand it over to Ramey to talk to the planning board about the requested continuance.
Sure. Thanks, Peter. Thank you all tonight for being here tonight and taking the time to hear us. As Peter mentioned, we have requested a continuance to the April 13th planning board meeting. Edens, our co-applicant on the project and owner of the site, is working through conversations with their existing tenants, and also just taking a global economic revisit at their entire retail portfolio, given everything that's going on in the industry and economy right now. And so with that, since we filed, things have clearly shifted, and we all remain committed to the project. they need a pause right now as we continue to as they continue to have their conversations internally.
When you say things have clearly shifted, what does that mean?
Interest rates, I mean, recession, everything that we're hearing every day, right, in terms of the global economic outlook. And so they just are continuing to have talks with their tenants. And apologies, I'm not an Eden's rep, so I can't speak on their behalf in terms of what those conversations are. But I do know that WIN remains committed to seeing this project move forward.
Does anyone have any comments on that project? I have to say it's a little, I feel that it's a little unusual and slightly disconcerting that a project submitted an application 3 months ago. We have never been introduced to the project and now is seeking a 2-month continuance, and that the application obviously came in just before the housing moratorium and now is going through some other kind of analysis supposedly. And so it's
And Tricia, before you continue, I thought this would not be substance related and more like a continuance discussion, but it feels like it might be a little deeper than that. So if you don't mind, I think I should step out because I'm a direct abutter on that project. I think that's the right way to go, just because I feel like it's going more into substance rather than process. So I'm just going to bow out.
okay. That's
Pete,
up to
just
you.
get me back in when it's done, just to be on the safe side.
I'll take care of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just my concern here. I feel like this project seems to have been this and seems to have put in right before a deadline, when it seems now to it certainly appearances are that it was obviously not ready. And it feels strange. I've never had a project that continued for the first 5 months after submitting an application. And I wonder why the application isn't simply withdrawn until the project is ready.
Sure. So I
mean, that may not be your purview to answer that question, but that is the question that I have on it.
Sure. I think that if I could, and Kita, maybe you can opine on this too, is part of the reason why we did the initial request for continuance was at the time, I think there was a lot on the existing, on the agendas for planning board. And we wanted to get in, yes, in front of the building moratorium. And out of respect, we weren't trying to overwhelm the planning board meetings with another project at the time. And so we did the initial request for continuance to get our filing in and be respectful of your guys' time and the agenda. So that was the reason for the initial one. So I can appreciate the frustration for the last request for continuance to today's meeting and this request for continuance, but I do just want to clarify, and that initial request from when we originally filed to the first of the year, I think was done in part in conjunction with conversations with town staff. Pete, is that?
There was a lot going on at that time.
I can just note, and I agree 100%. You know, Rami and I did talk a lot about it. And the question came up, obviously the building moratorium was voted on. Well, the application came in, the building moratorium was in on November 16th. Obviously we only had one meeting in November, which was earlier in the month, because of the holiday calendar, excuse me, that Thanksgiving is always on the 4th Thursday of the month in November. And then we had 2 meetings in December. And so with all the stuff that we had on our plate at that time, we did believe that it would be appropriate to start at the beginning of the new year, which would have been January 12th. So I agree with everything that Rami has laid out.
Yes, I understand that. That's just like I said, that certainly explains the first month, which was very heavily loaded. Totally understand that. It's the continued continuances for a total of 5 months that is at least in my experience on the planning board, extremely unusual. Kate, I saw you unmute, did you?
Yeah, so I appreciate that the applicant put a renotice to abutters because of the delay, and I don't think they have to do that by our rules. So I'm wondering, and maybe that's not the most effective, but I feel like that we have to do everything we can to make sure that it doesn't look like we're really not trying to involve the public, because I think that perception easily could be out there because of these delays, which some may be, a kindness to the planning board to not put it on, and then other reasons, which I think people can sort of understand the economics that the applicant's talking about, but we have to figure out a way to explain that to the public. So I think that should at least be discussed, how that can be handled.
Just speaking as a town planner, Kate, I'm happy to renotice in the newspaper. It is just it's a edit to the public hearing notice, and it's a email to the newspaper. The time and labor comes in the mailing all of the postcards out. This project hits 2 very large condominium complexes, and so it is significant, regarding that. However, obviously it was done twice now, and so it's something that can be done. But I think that's the option in this case. And obviously I'm happy to put a memorandum or ask them, develop a memorandum of the applicant, which I then can post on the website under that projects page.
I mean, I think that would be helpful. Can we get to the condo associations at least as well? And I mean, whether they distribute or not, but at least we tried. So if we cover the website, you cover a public notice, and we try to contact the condo association, I think that's pretty good, trying to explain the situation.
I'm happy to. I think I can try to work to contact the condo association, and I would ask the applicant in this case also provide a memorandum that the town can supply, and with the help of the applicant, we can supply to the condo association on top of a renoticing, which would be 2 months away.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Kevin?
I'd kind of share your, I don't know what to call it, skepticism or concern there, Tricia, a little bit, that it just does seem odd that maybe we were trying to squeak this in and it wasn't quite done or ready. So I guess the question for Peter really is if this comes back and when they are ready for us, it's drastically changed, does that still fit under what they filed, or would they need to refile? I mean, I hear talk about discussions with their current tenants, and I know there's a lot involved with changing the existing building there.
Well, I think just to answer your question, coming from a wider, from broader picture, if the project changes, right, in any such way, regarding the unit count will grow. If the square footage regarding the commercial space will grow in any way, I think I would definitely ask to renotice, just as a manner of, to cover the interest of the planning board, right? If there were any changes, obviously that were triggered a renoticing, I think I would do that for any project. So, at this point, and I haven't heard anything, and I haven't gathered any intel from the applicant in this case, that would prescribe that a change is coming to the project, that would offer no opportunity for a renotice as that would be, or that would stand. So I would ask that question to the applicant. Is there any plans to change and or alter the project as it was first proposed?
To my knowledge, not at this time.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Kevin? Or
Yeah, I think so. I think just we need to watch that this wasn't just a shell application to beat the clock.
No, it
By no
wasn't.
means was it.
I know that it was substantive, and I just hope that
And if I could,
What's planned to be built?
I do want to reiterate our commitment. I mean, in January, we were out on site with town staff and DPW doing a walk of the site. So it's not, I know that that's not in front of you and the board, but there is work going on the project and an effort to continue to advance and remain committed to the project.
Well, on that note, if there's no other questions from the planning board, are we okay issuing a continuance on this project for 2 months? What was the date, Peter? April
13th.
April 13th.
I make a motion that we continue the hearing on 301 Pond Street application till April 13th, subject to renotice, public notice, a memo jointly created with the applicant and town planning staff, published on the town website and sent to the condo boards.
Is there a second?
Second that.
All right, we'll take a roll call vote, starting with Deepa.
Deepa Venkatai.
Catherine Berzika, aye.
Evan McLean, aye.
And Trisha Kendall, aye. So that will be continued until April something, because the date didn't stick in my head.
Thank you guys very much. Have a good evening.
We'll see you in April.
Thank you.
All right. Do you want to send Anna a quick text there, Peter?
Yes, thank you.
And I think meanwhile, we will be starting on. Can we start on the review of the 35 High Street decision? That shouldn't.
We can do that, and also we can accept the withdrawal of the preliminary subdivision for the Village of the Americas.
All right, why don't we do that first, since it's
Okay.
next in line. Okay, so we're moving on to item 3C on our agenda, Village of the Americas, Phase 8 preliminary subdivision. The applicant has requested to withdraw the application. I believe we got an email about that. And this was basically the 100 Chestnut Street lot, right, Peter?
Correct. So
Which is
just to update everybody, prior to the building moratorium, the owner of the site, which would be Fafford, they submitted a preliminary subdivision. In an effort, they were going to follow up, if need be, with a preliminary subdivision to free zoning. Now, with that said, in this case, they have recently transferred and or sold the property to Baystone Development, which would be Mr. Roy McDowell, who is in front of the planning board, in which we granted approval for his project. And so therefore, upon the transfer of that property, the Fafford Company, which would be Ashland Chestnut LLC, Realty LLC, they have therefore withdrawn the application for the preliminary subdivision because they are no longer the property.
Any further questions on that? If not, I will make a motion that we accept the applicant's application to withdraw the Village of Americas Phase 8 preliminary subdivision application. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And a roll call vote?
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Catherine Berzika, aye.
Evan McLean, aye.
And Trisha Kendall, aye. So that is good. And seeing still no Marcelo, we will continue to the review of the decision for 34 High Street. This is the Stonewall Scenic Road application, or the decision. I believe we voted on it last time, right, Peter?
Correct, we did.
Okay.
And
We
this
voted-
was circulated
Yep.
to the planning board. I just want to make note that Trisha did reorganize the file, and that has not gone out to the planning board.
Can you bring that up?
Yep, I'm just getting over to it right now.
Okay, yeah, so I didn't make any content changes. to the document as far as our decision, but I wanted it to be more in the format that we have been establishing for other decisions. And that also included, when I went back to look at the scenic road bylaw, there weren't criteria, but there was a list of considerations. And I thought those should be in our decision as well, to keep everything as, unified across different decisions as possible. So, Peter, we can roll through this. I can show you what I added. And obviously you can read it to make sure it all sounds good. This is, I think, all the same.
This language was all the same.
Yeah, and the documents of record. I think,
Note, we corrected this. It was received on January 30th. I know I think I had the dates mixed up, but that was taken care of.
and then there's a second sketch added there, which is the newest one showing the actual decision we had made. And here's where then I start adding in with the facts and findings. I think the first two, A and B, were there. This is the considerations, which were taken exactly from the scenic road bylaw. And I'll give everyone a chance just to read through those considerations and note any changes, comments. I don't know if people are finished reading, but does anyone have any modifications to those? What do they call them? Considerations? Okay, do you want to scroll forward there, Peter? So again, I wanted to organize it into special project conditions and general project conditions. The general project conditions are ones that usually is a list much longer, obviously, for a different type of project, but we keep the ones in that are appropriate and divide out the special project conditions, which just have to do with this project. So I wanted just the formatting to be as consistent as possible. So there's the 5 conditions.
Is this sketch 23rd or 27th?
It's a 27th.
It's dated the 27th. Yeah.
So the facts and findings has sketch showing relocation of stone wall dated Jan 23rd. Are we talking about 2 different sketches here?
There were 2 different sketches. One showed the original proposal. I don't know, can you bring the new one up, Peter?
Yeah, I just have to get to it. I'm sorry.
And then I think someone had asked for a revised sketch, which was a good idea, showing where we were going to relocate the stones to, and also to show the 20-foot maximum wall removal, because those things weren't shown on the original sketch that the applicant provided.
Can everyone see this?
Yeah.
So this is dated the 27th right here, and it was received. And then, and this was for a 25, for a 20-foot removal of the stone. And there was an earlier sketch that I can grab. I just gotta stop sharing, excuse me. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time finding that one. I
Let's see if I can find it.
This is a plan that was presented at the meeting and we requested a new markup. Can everyone see my screen? This was a markup when it first was submitted to us on the screen. And it called for a 25-foot removal of stone wall, and we did not want that. We asked for a 20-foot. And so I think we're just differentiating between the two.
Yeah, so the original drawing, when you're referring to, it just doesn't have the red on it. The original drawing. This is the markup of the original drawing.
Correct.
Yeah, so it showed that there was a little bit more of a curve in turning the corner, and that was the original drawing, except now it has markup on it. And so the new sketch was presented to summarize what we had discussed properly. So.
Thank you.
So you want to bring the decision back up there, Peter?
Yep. Sorry.
Okay. Nope, no problem.
Stop. And I'm coming back with the decision. We were back in the general project conditions, and then obviously the decision.
Yeah, so if you want, I don't know if anyone needs to go back to the special project conditions, or are we? Anything anyone sees need to be modified, added? Like I said, I made no changes in content, just for my usual formatting forenza there. All
Looks
right.
good to me.
Okay. Peter, do we need, we've already voted on this. Do we need a motion to accept the decision?
There's no harm in it. I think we can make a motion to accept the decision. I also want to make a note that, yeah, I will fill it out and then we're ready to sign it. So, and on these scenic road decisions and or memorandums to the town clerk. Typically Tricia was the one that was signing them. I just put the signature block for Tricia. I don't know if we want to continue that, but that was traditionally how the things were done with the scenic roads.
So the question is, does everyone want to make sure they can come and sign their name, or am I given permission to sign for everyone, but according to the vote that we make tonight, obviously?
I'm good
Correct.
if you're on your signing.
I make a motion that we approve the decision as shown, as written and shown this evening, and give authorization to the chair to sign on behalf of the board.
I'll second it.
All right, a roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
Evan McLean, aye.
And Trisha Kendall, aye. So we're done with that. Yeah, my office is very close to town hall, and so I am probably the easiest person to be able to walk over there. So that might save you guys a lot of headache with your traveling and schedules. So all right, so
So with that said, we can go through our minutes. I'm gonna just text Marcelo right now and see if he has an ETA before we can go through, just to make note that anyone that is joining us from home and or Ashland Live, we're just waiting for a planning board member, obviously, to discuss the 399 decision. The public hearing is closed, but we do need to review the draft decision and vote tonight, make a formal vote. So with that said, thank you so much for everyone for holding tight and being patient. So other members of the planning board, we can go through our planning topics and the meeting minutes to follow.
Yeah, why don't you bring up the meeting minutes? And there was one question on there. I think people probably got Peter's note that apparently the recording of that meeting, which was, it was the meeting where I had to recuse myself for a short time and Anna took over at the end of the meeting for, I think, an approval not required issue. But the recording apparently had cut out. And so when the person went to type up the meeting minutes, it kind of ended rather abruptly. And it would be good if everyone, if you had time to take a look at it to see if anything was missing. Luckily, it was at the very end of the meeting.
You know where the cutoff is? I'm just looking at the 5 pages, the drafted minutes, and like, where is the cutoff? It looks kind of complete, so I wasn't sure what piece was cut off.
Can you pull that up? Because I think the 501 Pond Street voting is not recorded properly.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay.
Did I see? Okay, so you have a vote 400, but you have me voting yes, but
You're correct.
vote for that. So I guess not voting is really the correct way to say that. I wasn't absent, I just wasn't allowed to vote.
Okay, I'll take that up. Thank you. Excuse me, the cutoff, I don't have, cutoff comes at the end. I can get down, when I get down to it, I'll make a point. But it's right around the 2 A&Rs, the 34 High Street A&R and the 55 Tilton.
I mean, it seems right. That's what I remember, that we approved both. So I don't have any concerns about it. I do feel like if we had a recording cutoff and we're not sure, we should just
I feel like we should say that, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we should put
Somehow.
in there that, based on our recollection, this was consistent with what occurred, but the recording cut off.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and I would agree that from what I recall, we went through those pretty quickly, and this seems to state all the facts. So there probably wasn't much more. I don't remember a lot of discussion on them. I think it was pretty quick votes.
Do you remember about where the recording cutoff?
Yes, it is right here at the Scenic Way application, multiple continuance. So everything north of 136 is from our professional minutes. It was a professional stenographer. Excuse me. Everything south of 130. Everything south of 136 is professionally done. Everything north of 136 was done by myself, and it was held.
So did we actually continue the scenic road application?
We did continue it, and we continued it to December 15th, where we approved it.
So that seems consistent then. Can you just scroll down a little bit more?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's consistent with my recollection. I think this is fine. Like I said, I think we should just make a little note that literally add a little parentheses that from this on line 135, I guess, that from this point forward, it's based on our recollection rather than the recording. But it looks good to me.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 1st with the changes discussed.
Second that.
All right, roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Catherine Jersey, aye.
Evan McLean, aye.
And Trisha Kendall, aye. So those are approved.
I just heard note from Marcelo. Hopefully he'll be coming out shortly. So I think we'll be able to pick up 399 Union in a few minutes. But with that said, I think we can continue on with any other items.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything else is more, would be good to discuss with Marcelo there. Nothing is critical, but there's announcements and things that would be good for everyone to hear.
Okay.
So is it important that we don't open that up until he comes, Peter?
I think we should wait. We need Deepa has missed a couple of last meetings, so she can't vote. So he will be one of the voting members on it. So I think it's just.
Yeah, I don't want to mess anything up by.
No, I think out of practice, I think it's appropriate
rushing.
when we open up that discussion. So I think we've waited this long to do that. I just want to make a note, and I'll repeat it or reiterate it when Marcelo comes. But after our last meeting, we talked about an email we received from the Upper Charles Trail. Our old member of the planning board, Preston, reached out to the planning board. I went back and forth with emails with Preston, and the Upper Charles Trails committee was actually meeting tonight, so they were not available to meet the planning board. So I do have them coming to our next meeting on the 26th, and hopefully we can have a discussion with them on the 26th as things move forward. So just to make note of that.
Yeah, and just kind of continuing then, on the topics for future meetings. Kate had suggested that at some point we invite the fire department to come in, and so that we understand a little bit more about their well, actually, Kate, do you want to explain what your idea was?
Yeah.
Words in your mouth.
So I think the particular issue on my mind was the safety protection bollards. And I know, like, aesthetically, there are other options. And so I specifically wanted to see if they're open to other options. And if they are, probably, I think it could be pretty quick meeting, like design review, somebody from the planning board, fire department, maybe make a little catalog to streamline things for the applicants as well. And I think those are some of the things that we have seeming to find out late. And I feel like if we can really, professionalize that, and maybe even put that in our applications at some point. If you have these things, you will be looking, we need protection before it's even submitted. So then nobody's disappointed how late it got discussed or anything. And then through just brief email, Trish suggested, there's probably other issues that we can tighten up under that same, framework, I think.
Yeah, I thought Marcelo's on with us now. Marcelo, we were just talking about future topics for future meetings. Peter had said how the Upper Charles Trail Committee was going to come on our next meeting. And Kate had suggested at some point having talking to members of the fire department to understand. She had suggested things about bollards and other safety features that we've been talking about in outdoor eating areas. But I said, maybe there's other stuff that we should know as well. Like, what other questions would we had for the fire department to better our own understanding of how they look at a site? And so as we get some windows of opportunity in our meetings, those would be really informative conversations to have to help us through future projects. So if assuming that's generally agreeable, that kind of information, we'll have Peter reach out to them to see if they would be willing to do that, and schedule them at some future meeting to talk about that.
I think that's a good idea. I would suggest if we are trying to find this type of outreach, I think having a better link with the historical commission is something that I believe would help everybody. especially when we talk about the downtown district and all the areas, so that at least the board is more informed on the status of their historical surveys and what they are trying to work on.
So you're suggesting having an update by them, or having them come on and talk about their process?
I think it would be good at least to understand how what are their plans moving forward. We've heard of some, but I think to have a more in-depth understanding of how the interaction between what we do and what they do.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea too. We will add that to our list. The better we understand what other groups are doing and what's on their plate and their responsibilities, the better we'll do our job. So, all right. So, good. We've eliminated. You will be happy to know, Marcella, that we already did the meeting minutes and you missed it. So,
I approve.
yeah. All right. So that said, we will go back to item number 1 on our agenda. The 399 Union Street site plan review, which was continued from January 26th. The public hearing was closed on this. Public hearing was closed on this item. So the planning board had received the draft decision. So Peter now has a draft where he has incorporated the items that were highlighted in the draft that you received, and then incorporated any further comments he received on this decision. This is the decision for the Starbucks. So any items, so you may have from the board, like you may have questions about the document or comments about the document you received, and any items in yellow now that I think it's in yellow, right, Peter?
That's correct.
That Peter is going to show are things that members of the board or town council have added into the document since it was sent to you. So.
So with that said, I can roll through and I'll say any changes that have been made since the last time I circulated this. I put in yellow. I just want to put a note that any changes that came from the planning board member is also put in yellow. So this is just a reminder for myself regarding who's voting on this, but who's voting on this tonight would be Anna, Kate, and Marcelo and Kevin. And Deepa will not be because Deepa has missed a few meetings. I'm sorry, Deepa, but that is what is going on. So I want to make a note. This is all has stayed the same. One element that I did add was the elevations and the renderings. The elevations and the renderings that were submitted at the last meeting are here as they were submitted. And I did add then the 1A4 with the renderings also to this section of the decision. This stayed the same. All these elements stayed the same. This area is highlighted in yellow because I received a comment asking if we should highlight separate letters. And so I think, in speaking with Tricia, we thought it'd be best to have that conversation with everybody in the planning board. The email here is V, W, and X. The Wine Empire, there was a letter came in. There's letters that came in, and they are listed. And the question is, does the board want me to remove them? Because I have not added in all other emails. And so, Tricia, I don't know if you want to lead that conversation.
Yeah, so this is something that came up, I think shortly after I arrived in Iowa, I think. And Peter had posted some commentary that he received to the website. And then we wondered, we really hadn't done that before. And we wanted to maybe make sure the planning board discussed if we wanted letters from the public up on the website, posted along with the drawings and everything else. Or if we didn't, and if we did, in what format? And so the same question goes here. These are letters and emails from the public. They're not all represented here. So the question is, do we just take them all out? Or do we leave these in and add in another item, which would be all of the kind of letters from individual residents? The letters that Kate has been talking about, the public comment, put them all in a PDF and add that to this? Or do we want to just take it out for now and figure it out on for the next project, if we want to include that stuff and how? So
I mean,
for the board.
my thinking would be that if we have a retreat as a board at some point, we should have a deeper dive discussion about what is public record, what isn't, and how to properly post public comments on our website, right? I think that's more of a deep dive discussion for our retreat. I think relative to this specific decision, I think highlighting certain letters and not others, meaning, item R is very general. Items E, W, X really bring out items that are not from the applicant, or what I would say are technical individuals such as consultants, but rather public commentary of some kind, some from community members, but really quite a bit from town related committees or organizations. So it gives it a little bit of a emphasis over other public comment, and I don't think that's appropriate. I think we have to either list every single public comment individually, including those we got from select board members, or, which we don't list here, or we have to have one item that just says everything in one paragraph, meaning maybe we take item R and we extend it, abutters, neighbors, business owners,
Community groups.
town committees, select board members, and other folks relative to the project. We make it very, very general. Because to me, it's all or nothing. I don't think it's appropriate to highlight one over the other.
Yeah.
I agree with Anna. I think it's unfair. It's not for us to pick and choose what comments go in and go out, because it would be unfair to those that are not mentioned. And I think if they could be set up as an appendix on the town website or on the clerk's office somehow, and here it is mentioned that they're all available. That's one thing. The only exception perhaps would be a direct abutter that has an issue with the nature of the application that I guess has a different type of weight. But even with that probably would be more about town council, advising what it is, what is more germane than what. So in general, I think it's a rabbit hole that I don't think we should get into, but we should just give equal access to everybody that wants to know what the communications were to go find them.
So would you agree with Marcelo taking out the items in yellow and kind of beefing up R to include a few more things to make sure everything's kind of covered?
Yeah, I think not make reference to some communications and not others. I think
Yeah.
I think if the spirit of these points is just to emphasize that communications were received, then we just say that, and we leave in writing a direction of where to find that information if somebody is so inclined.
All
I
right.
mean, I would say I don't know if we need to kind of tell the public, hey, you have a right to make a public records request. Anything we receive is public record, anything the board received. So I think that's kind of known in state law, and people can always request these things. I don't think we need to kind of highlight that in this. I think we just need to say R is expanded and include, like I said, the Wine Empire was a business owner in Ashland. The Economic Community Outreach Group is, an advisory board to the town, or however you want to frame it. I think it needs to be much more generalized.
Well, why don't we,
Well,
unless,
I support, I think Marcelo was saying just other correspondence received, right? And then a separate conversation, which I'm very much in favor of, is figuring out how to make that public. But that's not gonna be solved for this. So I think R should stay, other correspondence received, from community or whatever. So other community correspondence received relative to the project, period. And we won't solve it for tonight, how to get that available to people.
so you're saying, Kate, let's make R even simpler and more comprehensive instead of trying
Yes.
to name all these groups.
Yes.
Are you good with that? Em?
I'm all for that. I think
All
that's
right.
the way to go. I think we're gonna have either all or nothing, and to me, this is the
Like-
nothing version.
I like that idea. I think Kate
Yeah.
is on a good direction.
All right, unless there's other protests, let's do that. Let's simplify.
I'm just gonna delete
Yep, and then you're taking out,
the butters, neighbors, and residents.
yep, so it should just read other correspondence.
I'm
Relative to the
okay
project.
leaving, I don't think we need to take that out. I think.
Oh,
that's
sorry.
fine.
I thought we were just gonna have it be our other correspondence relative to the project. Was that what you were suggesting, Kate?
Yeah. And maybe say community, so it's not thinking it's a different letter from the attorney or something. Just make it clear that.
I was okay with R as is. I don't know if that's necessary to make it even shorter, but you're saying just say all other correspondence, other community correspondence relative to the project?
Yes.
That sounds good to me. It's
That's
simple
fine.
and covers everything.
Other community correspondence.
I think, Anna, if you like seeing a butters, neighbors, and residents, maybe where Peter's typing and or others in the community relative to the project. So then you have a butters, neighbors, residents, and or others in the community.
That's kind of how I envisioned, but I think Kate is suggesting making it even shorter and just saying other correspondence relative to the project. So I don't know, Kate, how short you want it.
I would say other community correspondence relative to the project, or leave it with the edit that Kevin just suggested.
Other correspondence from abutters, neighbors, residents, and or others. That's a lot of and ors.
I don't think it probably just needs the and
Or other community.
it needs the or, not the and, other community members.
Exactly.
Or community groups. No.
I think we
Oh,
should just
sorry.
simplify it as Kate was saying, other
Okay.
community correspondence relative to
Okay.
the project. Let's keep it really simple and let's figure it out at the retreat if we want it
Yeah.
to be more specific.
I think that's fine.
Yeah, or we'll be discussing and button orders here. Other
Okay.
community correspondence.
Relative to the project.
Yep, you need to take out the or other, yep. Other community correspondence relative to the project. That covers just about everything.
Seems perfect.
Awesome. So
And
this
what is this
highlighted,
item in red?
this item in is red is because Trisha, I moved this to right here, A4.
Okay, so you're just
So I
gonna
just-
take it out in that
I'm
spot?
just gonna take it out because I
Okay.
put it in red, so I'm gonna delete it and I didn't wanna
Yeah, 'cause
delete it without anybody seeing it.
yeah, it's more appropriate that the drawings are up near the drawings versus.
Yep.
Peter, I
Just
think
don't miss.
your list didn't update the numerals though, when you deleted that.
Yeah, you're missing part of the alphabet.
Yeah,
QR,
you go to S.
yeah, there you go. No, you need to click on the R and then,
Yeah, just go
Rename.
backspace all the way to get to the
Yeah.
prior line and then you hit enter.
yeah, you can do it that way too.
Hit backspace until it moves up a line and then hit enter.
Oh, I gotcha.
There you
Gotcha.
go.
And I gotta do the same thing. Perfect. All right. Now we're cooking with gas.
Do we have any more down there? Is it end at T?
Ends at T.
Okay.
Documents of the record. This is the facts and the findings. This all is unchanged.
So, and that site plan that we're referencing is the most recent site plan with the most recent changes,
That
January
is correct. That's January 8th, 2023.
You have an
Actually,
extra,
January
because you
18th.
have an extra column on that one. Seems to be a typo there.
In here.
Engineer's plan, isn't that without the column?
Oh, where the red underline is. Is
Yeah,
that little,
the
yeah, is that supposed to be in there, that little colon?
engineer's plan.
Oh,
There you go.
Plan set entitled.
okay.
Okay, thank you. This is January 18th. This is the latest version of the site plan.
All right, so facts and findings.
Facts and findings, this remains all unchanged. This is all unchanged. Again, this
I
continues.
thought there was a whole section about outdoor patio.
There was a whole
There it is.
section, but it was so since I sent out that one on Friday, all comments received back. So whatever was highlighted on Friday was unhighlighted.
Gotcha. So E, F, and G is the new stuff. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. But there was no comments made on this application on this section, and so therefore it's not highlighted. But I'm happy to slow down and for everyone to take a.
Yeah, or if someone has a comment that they didn't send in to Peter,
Yes.
obviously it's
Yeah.
still,
Please
yeah.
do.
So I
Yeah.
think that the outdoor seating is the piece that I just want to make sure we've talked through this and that we're consistent with other outdoor projects that we've discussed, like TJ's and Motzi. Obviously, this is a little different because we're not being asked to put a tent outside, right? But I just want to make sure that we are consistent with some of those factors that we had considered. And as I understand the outside space, I wasn't quite clear on the outside space as to like what time of year it would be used or any of those details. And I feel like we should make sure we understand what we're saying here.
But usually, Anna, I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but when we discuss some other similar or applications for outdoor seating, those are, they would just simply fall in line with the hours of operation of the business. I believe the aspects that we touched on were accessibility, safety, and life safety, basically safety around the patio and lighting, right?
That sounds about right. And I didn't necessarily see lighting addressed here. And obviously later when we talk about hours, we can always think back to this section. But this was not very clear to me. I don't think we've clearly defined the construct of this outdoor space. And yes, those are the elements I think that are missing. The light.
But this is that shown on the site plan, Peter? Because the site plan should have site lighting on it, right?
Yeah, and I think even in the case of like TJ's, when we got to this point, they didn't have specific outside lighting, and we let it. That's why we had this thing is determined safe and accessible as determined by the building commissioner. Now I think we've added down below. We've added something about ADA, which everything has to comply with anyway. But
yeah, I mean the space is going to have to, by law, comply with 521 CMR, which is accessibility code in Massachusetts. So that's what we added at TJ's because there was a ramp and there was some discussions about the accessible features of the ramp, and we left it as a ramp to comply with 521 CMR. So as to slopes, railings, and all other safety features. I don't think that's the case here.
I think I guess what I'm trying to say is with the other project, the outdoor space was used for commercial purposes. I don't think this is meant for that, right? This is more just outdoor space available to the public, or meaning it's not like the other TJ's and Motzi's actually using the outdoor space as for serving food for people sitting down. Guests are actually outside. It's a full-scale restaurant outside. This is not it, right? This is more like outdoor seating for those who come in and they get a bite, they get a cup of coffee, they go outside and they're sitting there with their kids kind of thing. So I think we should just be very clear here to distinguish this from that and be very, very clear. Maybe the first sentence should say something a little bit more clear that this is not a serving environment outside, so that it's clear why we're not creating the same detailed analysis that we would for more permanent outdoor seating. Do you see what I'm saying? I feel like that this needs to be fleshed out just a
I
little
see what
bit.
you're saying, but I fail to see the difference. I mean, it's a restaurant business. Whether the people sit with the food that they bring when they grab it, or let's say that your coffee was not ready, you go sit and somebody brings it to you. Is that different?
Yeah.
If
I
it's not
agree.
different, then I think we need to go through all of those. Remember how we had a whole checklist? If it's not
Yeah, but-
different, I think we need to go through the checklist. If it's different, we don't need to go through the whole checklist. It was like 20 things that we came up with.
No, I don't think it was, but I think in terms of those things, I mean, it was really about, really what this comes down to is building codes, and all these things all the things about lighting and accessibility and safety are all covered under the building codes.
Yeah.
And so they already have to be dealt with anyway. So,
Well, can we bring up the lighting? Because lighting for abutters at that site is very, very sensitive. And we received a lighting plan that had no spillover, right? But if the building commissioner says, well, wait a minute, you're having people out here potentially at 11 o'clock and I want you to have lights, but no one's done a lighting study, that is a serious difference that we have to consider.
But if the site plan, Kate, doesn't have any spillover at any time.
But the way this is written, the building commissioner could add lights, and then he isn't necessarily going to ask for a lighting study and care if it spills over, because his main thing is safety and complying with the building codes, like Trish said. So we have to be very, very clear about that.
Yeah, I get it. I don't see it. I mean, in my experience, when you get to this point, the building code, I think, asks you for like 1 foot candle per square foot, and which is almost nothing for just general safety to be able to walk out of there if there's an emergency. There's just no way that I just don't see the situation where that would change anything.
yeah, and also,
You know what I mean?
yeah, and building commissioners don't
They don't
break
get into
one
that.
regulation to fulfill another, right? They have to make sure everything is fulfilled. So, it's just, to me, it'd be overkill to be doing more here. These are standard patios that go on everything, and it really just is part of the code that has to be, it's already been written in another location.
Yeah, and we're not going to change that. I mean, we can't. But I mean, what Anna suggested is true. I mean, there were a bunch of other things that we talked about, but that situation, we're putting a seating area on a parking lot. So they had to create a bunch of other safety features. That this is really just a patio right on an elevated curb on their.
I think the important thing for me is I wanted the board to understand the difference. And what I'm hearing, Marcella, is that it is different from other projects because we're not in a parking lot and it's not a full scale type of seating outdoors that we need to truly outline every single element. And I'm okay with that.
I think you got it right. This is actually much simpler, and that's the reason why the code already covers all these situations very well, and it would be a waste of our time to try to.
And I'm okay with that, but I do want to come back to this later when we talk about hours. I think a couple of pages down, there's hours discussion. And I think Kate's point about lights may come back if we're going to be open until 11 o'clock at night. So, and we can discuss that further down. I'm okay with this for now.
Okay.
Until we talk about about hours.
The only change, Peter, when in this paragraph, in the last paragraph, say protected by ballads, it should be bollards. I mean, unless there's going to be some nice soft music there.
And just looking at it, Anna, if you really quickly Google to see mass code, the outdoor seating is more just from the accessibility point of view. And here in this for a coffee shop, the accessibility here is more, the furniture is more an accessory, like a landscape element. It's not really kind of a furniture that you would put in a restaurant. So accessibility is from point that it's safe enough to get to that chair to sit down, and there's a path for it. There's the surfaces. So lighting really is not one of them. And I guess when we looked at the lighting Photoshop, the photo, I mean, this one illumination, I think it was pretty consistent because there's parking right there. So the lighting is probably going to be sufficient. And here, when you talk about the as determined by the building commissioner, it's only from the safety of accessing those furniture, not from anything else. I think that's what this means, not from the light levels. They have to provide your minimum lighting anyway to walk up to the store. That lighting has to be per code. So I think we are good here at this. I don't think we have any issues in this, and it's not the same as what we had for TJ's for sure.
Like I said, I'm fine with that as long as we come back to it during the hours peak, because I see what you're saying, Deepa, that for ADA purposes and safety, you're going to need some minimal lighting there and per code. I get that, but I also get Kate's point that in my view, this is currently, it's right next to an open green space, and there is some energy, if you will, from this drive-through that will come there. And I think we should come back to this maybe when we discuss hours, or we may not need to. Because if it's open super late and there's a lot of activity there late at night, discussions of lighting and other types of things may be reasonable.
Peter, there's another ballad, two rows up or 3 rows up.
You're gonna have to tell us who the singer is.
Yeah.
I'm all for ballads at
Me too.
Starbucks. Sounds great.
It's not me, I'll tell you that, right?
We can create an Ashland ballad.
Good. There you go.
No,
Yep.
right there.
Love it. Bottom left.
Oh, I got it. Whew. Making sure everyone was on their toes.
Mhm.
Okay. Move on.
I think so. I think we're ready. So these are the criteria.
Site plan criteria. No changes from Friday's version. Kate, this applicant once said the developer, and Kate made a comment to change it to applicant.
Yeah.
So that was really minor. Continue on. And this is where we get to the project conditions. And this had the change regarding sidewalks.
What can you, oh yeah, so I guess the first ones were unchanged, right?
Yep, the first 2 are unchanged. The landscape pollinator habitat, the safety, landscape and safety, and then the crosswalk that was in there. This is regarding the sidewalk, and this is one that has changed a little bit and is asked to put in more of a Mass DOT construction standard for the sidewalk as a cross. And that was put in also an element here that it would be 36 inches, that would provide 36 inches in ADA accessible.
And again, just to clarify, because the version I'm looking at sent to us a couple of days ago was a little longer here. Was there more changes since then?
That was my change,
Okay.
Anna, so that this one was my change. I thought
Okay.
that Peter's version was descriptive, but not about the actual type of construction. And so
Okay.
I was trying to get more specific
Yeah.
about that
Yeah, I'm just
and
trying to
take
see
out,
Gotcha. Thank you. I'm just trying to make sure we're looking at the right edited version. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just reading in comparison.
I'm gonna continue on. Deliveries was unchanged. Fence,
Can
dumpsters was unchanged.
I think Anna was still looking.
Yeah,
reading-
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm still
Oh.
reading.
Highlighted
Sorry.
one, because it was changed from the version.
Yeah, one second.
Provided,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do your time.
And is this consistent with the Mueller letter that we got?
This was consistent with Mueller.
Yep. Yeah, I'm good with this.
Okay. This all has remained the same. The mural condition, this has had a few changes, mostly grammar in some wording, but I'll let everyone review it, and please let me know if there's any questions.
I am good with the mural as it's written with the highlights.
I am good.
I just want to make sure, wasn't there some kind of language about ownership from council? Like if it changes, what happens if there's a change of the, hold on a second. I thought we may have cut out a sentence from town council's letter. Give me a minute here.
Mhm.
I think actually Peter added in some information about the exact rendering.
For the life of me, I can't find the council letter. Peter, can you assist me in finding it? I want to say there was some language in there about what happens when there's a change in occupancy.
I have it in front of me.
Not in there?
It's just kind of the first. The applicant offers and the board accepts that the applicant or its successor and.
Gotcha.
assigns-
Perfect. Yep, got it. I'm good. Yep, it's in there. We're good.
But and is that elevation rendering? Oh, that was the rendering of the mural. That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
I'm good with the mural paragraph.
Okay. Number 11 is hours of operation. In everyone's email, I did kind of put together just a summary of times. From the, to follow up on a discussion at the last meeting, the applicant in this case is asking for operations from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. Just to note, the Dunkin' Donuts on the Memorial Drive is open from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. These are things I did find online. The Honeydew Donuts, which is in close proximity to the site, is open at 4 a.m. and closes at 8 p.m. The Seasons Market Dunkin' Donuts is open at 5 a.m. and it closes at 9 p.m. And that is at the corner of, Union Street and Homer Ave. The CVS across the street in the plaza is, the drive-through on the pharmacy. It's not comparable, but I did add it to the email. That pharmacy drive-through opens at 8, then it closes at 8 as well. And then also, I just want to make a note. I do believe in my email, I do say that the first train leaving the Ashland station, just because it is in proximity to the Memorial Drive, The first train leaving that station east to Boston is at 4:45 a.m. And then the first train heading west to Worcester pulls out of the station at 5:36 p.m. Excuse me, 5:36 a.m. So with that said, that is the hours of operation as proposed in the application, and therefore I will let have the board open it up for discussion.
Yeah, so these are the hours I think that the applicant has requested. To me, the 5 a.m. seems fair and in alignment with what is being allowed for other similar businesses in the area. And the 11 p.m. I'm not sure about.
So, I mean, my thought on this is I looked at Starbucks on Route 9 in on 573 Worcester Road, and that to me is kind of indicative of a Starbucks that's kind of on a really major highway, and that is open during the week, Monday to Friday. It's essentially open between 5 and 5:30, and it closes by 7. And on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, it opens later and closes earlier, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that's a major highway, right? Now we're talking about a Starbucks that's, in my opinion, is not on a major highway. It's certainly an important economic route through downtown Ashland, but it's not Route 9 by any means. And so in my opinion, this should not be more generous than the Starbucks on Route 9 that's a drive-through, which is frankly not related or connected to a major green open space where neighbors are used to peacefully walking on weekends with their kids or their dog and not having a ton of traffic or sound. So I would argue that we should replicate, at a minimum, it should replicate the Starbucks hours on Route 9, but frankly should be closer to hours that are consistent with the environment of where we are. And so I would prefer that we replicate the Dunkin' Donuts closure times of 6 p.m. during the week. The Dunkin' Donuts that's right next to the train station in Ashland. So I guess I'm proposing Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 6 p.m., consistent with the Dunkin' Donuts, and weekend hours, just like the Starbucks on Route 9, opening up later at 6 and closing earlier at 6.
I'm not really interested in what for me, I'm not really interested in what the Starbucks on Route 9 does. I'm interested in what's happening in our own community and being fair to the various businesses, all the various businesses we're allowing in our community. So to me, that would mean if Dunkin' Donuts and Honeydew are open at 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. on the weekends respectively, then we give the same consideration to an equal business. But that's my thoughts on the start time. I'd be happy for others to weigh in as well, obviously.
The questions I have, and I don't know if we have the answer to this. We're comparing this with the other coffee shops, which makes a lot of sense. What are the hours of operations of the Mexican restaurant right there across the street?
Let's see.
I didn't look them up, but I did look up Honto across the street in the CVS parking lot is open till 12:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Again, not a drive-through, so maybe a little bit different, but I mean, I know they've had their issues with loud music at night over there, so they're.
Yeah, but there's the Mexican restaurant right in front in the corner right there, and there's a lot of traffic in that parking lot.
Yeah, so they are open. Mexico City is open from 11 a.m. every morning and then closes Thursday at 9:30, Friday and Saturday at 10, Sunday through Wednesday at 9:30. So
okay, and my second question is hours of operation. What is the definition of this? What is this different than when the trucks, the delivery trucks are going to show up, or is inclusive of that?
That's different.
So between, let's say the neighbors, let's say that they were up to 11 p.m. like it says here. So they, on top of that, they're going to be seeing trucks in the between hours there.
Well, I'd like to speak to that a little bit because I happen to live near a plaza.
Right.
And I mean, the employee parking, at least some of it is right near, it's on the side near a butter. So if they're opening at 5, people get there earlier, and it would never necessarily exceed that 70 decibels of noise rating, but people talking in a car door slamming at before 5 a.m. is very disruptive. And I mean, I challenge you to have them stick to, I mean, every time it goes off a dumpster, I happen to get up early, we record it, but it's never going to actually be like chased and make them follow those hours, right? So if this owner decides to have trash picked up at our regular time, the neighbors are going to experience that. So I think I just want you all to be aware of that when we're talking about this. I'm not sure I specifically have an opinion how to handle it, but it's absolutely a concern.
I mean, I think that's a really good concern. And I for one don't think that every coffee shop in town needs to have the exact same hours. I think there's a big difference between this super successful model of a Starbucks drive-through that the company has been so focused on, and no offense to Honeydew, but it's a very different model.
But Dunkin' Donuts is not that different, is it?
And Dunkin' Donuts is not that different, but Dunkin' Donuts is not next to a quiet green space currently, which is next to a fairly quiet Walgreens. So there is an environment right next to this Starbucks that we reasonably can choose to consider as part of the restrictions here. So what I'm suggesting is that this is not any coffee shop. This is a coffee shop right next to a green open space called Stone Park that attracts a certain kind of energy, a fairly quiet energy, including nighttime. And it's one of the last, close to that location, it's one of our last green open spaces where late at night you can go and you can watch the stars or hear the crickets. And we're about to open a drive-through until 11 o'clock at night right next to it. I'm not sure that's the right call for our community. I do think it's important to consider that Starbucks does quite well on a major highway, Route 9, closing at 7 p.m. So I think if anything, it's very fair to Starbucks to replicate a super successful model that they have.
But adding to that location, when you're on Route 9, you're probably driving. You're probably not taking the train or coming that side. So the crowd that is on Route 9 past 6 o'clock is driving from destination A to B, versus this one, if I was taking a train late night, I'm probably not kind of taking in those peak hours. It's probably past 6:37 in the evening, for example. So I don't think it's the right way to compare what's happening on Route 9 versus what's on the inner circle of Ashland. I think they're two very different things. And I feel like we have to think about making sure that business is successful as well, right? This success of this business is inside Ashland and it has an effect. You want to be careful about the timing part. Like if somebody's taking a train, you miss your Dunkin' Donuts, your next stop would probably be in that plaza. So I feel like that 5 a.m. is not a bad start, because I leave at 6:30 and I would love to grab my coffee before I hit the highway. And there are a lot of people at that time as well. So 5 a.m. seems very reasonable to me. And as far as the Stone Park, I'm not sure if.
And again, my suggestion is Monday to Friday, 5 a.m. start, Saturday and Sunday, 6 a.m. And then Monday to Friday, I think this should close at 6, just like the Dunkin' Donuts. That's my suggestion for closing time.
Yeah, I think on the opening times, I think we're more in agreement than not. I think that I took the train, and like Deepa said, 6 o'clock, sometimes you miss the coffee and you miss it. I don't know why they have that hours of operation, if they requested it that way or not. I think the activity of this plaza and its surrounding commerce, because it's a commercial zone, comes with the noise of commercial zones. I'm not sure that that we're doing too much to change one corner of the plaza and not the others, where all these restaurants that are pretty busy have a lot of traffic and people going in and out, and music and what have you, up to 10 or 11, whatever that is. I think 11 o'clock seems a little too far for me. I think a business from 5 a.m. was a typical coffee business from 5 to somewhere around 8 or 9. I would be okay with that. 11 is too much in my view.
Yep, I'm on the same boat, and I feel like the Dunkin' Donuts is so much catering to the folks getting off the train.
Yeah.
It's so close, so the proximity and the timing of that may have been the reason, right? People may not all the time go out of your way to get to that particular location. Yeah, I agree with Marcelo. I think I'm on 5 to 9 sounds like a good time frame.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think, I mean, if 9 o'clock is obviously not late, the other businesses are still thriving at that time in this area. And it might be that Starbucks decides on its own to shut down earlier, which maybe is what Honeydew and Dunkin' Donuts decided as well, because they just don't get the business after that time. Now, maybe Starbucks will be in right across from the park. There's concerts that happen there. I can imagine quite a few people from the concerts or whatever that I don't remember how late they run, probably not that late, but walking over and maybe not getting anything with caffeine in it, but getting something else to take with them. So, and 9 o'clock just isn't that late. So I guess I think I'm comfortable with 5 to 9.
So it sounds like the 4 voting members for today, Trish and Marcelo, are comfortable with the 5 to 9. It sounds like Kate and I are leaning more towards earlier closure. So I think we need to find a compromise. It sounds like we're on board. 5 a.m. opening consistent is fine with all 4 of us. Is that accurate, Kate?
Yeah, I think if it's a coffee shop, that's what they're there for. So
Okay, so 5 a.m. is not an issue. As far as closure time, it sounds like Trish and Marcelo want 9. Kate, what do you want? Just so that I understand where the compromise might be.
I mean, this is a tough one because I think there's people that like an amenity. I mean, personally, I don't think they're ever going to stay open until 11 because I think what we said, they'll find where the business works. What I'd like to see is, it seems going towards something early, the board, and I was going to suggest there's an option to revisit that, right? So maybe we tuck it the earliest that we can live with and with an option. Because I don't know that it's going to be the biggest disturbance, but I know that there are 2 abutters there that I potentially will be disturbed by this, different than the Walgreens. And we definitely have to think about that.
So can we do 5 to 7 and give the applicant an opportunity to come back to us 12 months from the date of occupancy if the applicant wants different hours? Is that plausible?
I don't agree with that personally. I think there's no reason to do that when Mexico City could be blasting music and having people until 10:30. What's the point? I mean, it's really the commercial plaza. It's not, I mean, Dunkin' Donuts is over there on their own. It's a very different situation. This is a commercial with a strip mall full of other businesses that is part of the environment of this corner of the town. It seems arbitrary to me to go way different than what already happens there. I know that's my view. I mean, if Mexico City closes at 10:30, there's no reason why really this business would be open until 11. And that's why I think 9 seemed to make more sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be an amenity in downtown that people are wanting. I see especially connected with the park on summer evenings and walking over, and when it's light out till 9 o'clock and we're closing down this thing at 7, which the public may very well like to use. It's not like it's.
So again,
11 is too late, but I think 9 is good.
I mean, I think we have 4 people, 2 want 9 and 2 want 7. So
Right.
I think we're going to have to land somewhere in between. So, where's the compromise? And I think we need to figure that out.
Did
But-
Kate
but
say
Anna-
7 or what did Kate say?
I didn't, so what I didn't hear though is, so if the applicant asked for 11, and I guess that's the danger, they asked us to close the hearing, we can't even discuss this with them. Is everyone opposed to saying a window that they could come back and ask for 11 later?
Would that be true with any business,
I don't know.
Peter?
Yeah, it would be a modification to the site plan.
Yeah, so any business could ask for a later, a change in their hours, is that right?
Yeah, and most businesses, and this is a business, right? We don't, and I don't, it's part of the discussion, obviously. But for other businesses, I don't, I think we sometimes regulate, we weigh in, and sometimes because we accept what they propose, right? But in this case, obviously, this is just the item that obviously is up for, that was discussed at the previous meetings, and we just need to kind of work through and to go from there.
Here's what I'll say. I think it's not arbitrary to regulate a drive-through more severely than a sit-down restaurant. And I think there is a difference between Honto, which is a very local sit-down restaurant. It really is a local hangout, in my opinion, versus a Starbucks that's going to attract traffic via 135 from multiple angles in the community. So it's not arbitrary to regulate a drive-through differently in a major intersection. And I don't think it's arbitrary to think about whether we want to turn this into such a busy traffic-related corner late at night. So I, for one, think 9 is not necessary. I could live with 8, and I am open with coming back in a year if that is somehow economically not viable for the business.
Okay, when I say arbitrary, I didn't mean about what you just said, Anna. I mean that the number came out of nowhere. They definitely can be regulated differently. If anything, I think a drive-through probably is quieter than a sit-down restaurant. So it could be different, could be more.
Yeah,
Could be
I
less.
agree. I made that case before that I think drive-throughs are pretty quiet. Usually I roll up my windows so that people don't listen to the NPR I have on, my rocking car. But I think 8 is a minimum for me. They can start there. I think the public would more appreciate 9. I think they would be, appreciated, by the people. The other businesses are open, as Marcelo said. But if we need to reach a compromise, I'll compromise at 8.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of traffic there at those hours anyways, and traffic through the drive-through is no more noise or congestion than the cars driving by or accelerating from the traffic light right there.
But it's certainly more cars in a more regular fashion, in a more.
How much business are they going to be doing at 9 o'clock at night?
I mean, if
How
you
many
look at the
more cars are-
Starbucks business model, they're building more drive-throughs across the country than ever for a reason, because they're
Well,
very
you said Route 9
successful.
was closed at 7, Anna, so they don't have business on Route 9.
Right, because
That's
that
how they
particular
close it
community,
down.
because that particular community may have regulated them quite differently than we're trying to do today. So communities do set hours to businesses. That is a
Yeah,
reasonable
I
regulation.
mean, the Wendy's drive-through on Route 9 is open till 2 a.m. So I kind of doubt that they regulated that, but we'd be guessing.
Yeah, it's a guess, and I don't think we should do that at this point. We're
So
only looking at the
bottom
hours.
line is the bylaws allow us regulation, and there's factors here, and we have discussed them as far as the environment, the noise level. And it sounds to me like we're compromising at 5 to 8 for now. Is that agreeable to you, Kate?
I like that.
Okay.
Right, let's put it at 5 to 8.
Can we move on? Moving on.
Moving on.
Okay, so moving on, we have the Ashland, welcome to Ashland sign, member Kevin. made a note or sent a note to me asking to take some of the language which was received by Lisa Mead for the mural and just identify it in more of a legal prescribed manner so we can kind of highlight that, yes, the welcome to Ashland sign is here for its the indoor, the applicant or assessors indoor sign, so it gives the town of Ashland the ability to install and maintain the welcome to Ashland sign as shown on sheet C3 of the approved plans.
Seems reasonable.
Yep, I agree.
Moving on, these are all four 13 through 16 are requests by a planning board member to insert as special conditions. And so if that, I can go through them myself, but one is for taking number item 23 regarding Union Street and extending the physical barrier in the middle of Union Street to prohibit a left-hand turning movement. Also, this 14 is regarding a follow-up on the sighting plan to make sure that there's no light spillage in the neighborhood. Number 15 is regarding police details. And number 16 is regarding more of a legal component, which I'll discuss further. General conditions were added, which is very similar to this, which was advised by legal counsel. So with that said, this decision number 16 is almost duplicated by a regular decision, a general condition which was put forth by town council. So with that, I would just probably open up conversation on items 13 through 15. And so those are up for discussion. Trish and/or Kate, do you want to lead the discussion?
Sure, because I think those are mine. I don't know if other people have the same concern. So in the Ron Mueller report, so we received basically 3 rounds, but item 23 in the second round, it was on it was 1114 report on page 4 to 5. I do not believe that was addressed. I know there was a response from the applicant's engineer saying they didn't think it was needed and there's more signage, but we also saw the applicant's engineer said they didn't think the flashing crossing light was needed and the independent person did. So again, I suppose we're in a little bind of closing the public hearing and no one can get more information, but we're not specifically in the habit of dismissing qualified independent engineering things about safety. And I do appreciate let me say that Ron Mueller, this site was not brought to us nearly in the safe condition that he helped make it to. So, and I do appreciate the board. I think that has been always our number one safety, as it should be. So I think that's where this is coming in. We've had, I believe on the first hearing with the board, that there was at least one person, if not more, that expressed traffic about that area, and it's already a problem, and to not add to it. So I think this should be strongly considered.
Can I just get a clarification, Kate? I'm looking at Ron Mueller's letter of January 25th. Is number 13 based on that letter? Where did the number 23 come from?
23 is from the original, and it's
Okay.
the first and the second.
Okay.
Third, it appears that maybe it was missed as a response. Like you said, oh, I think they're closed. I think they're all set. I did not see anything that said number 23 is all set.
Gotcha. So the only issue I have with number 13 is just the way it reads is confusing to me. Like the town should consider, technically, we, the planning board, are setting these restrictions, right? And so to be consistent with his letter, the writing, the framing there seems to be that we should be requiring this, not that we should consider it.
I took that so people could find the language. That was his item 23, so the town should consider.
Oh, so just cut and
Yeah.
paste it right out.
We
of
are
it.
the town and we should consider, I'm
Okay.
suggesting, please do consider, and we put that as condition.
Yeah, I would say edit that to actually make it an actual condition.
I'm hesitant because if you read number 23 on that report, it goes on to talk about needing input from the fire department because the fire engines may need to get out that way and go over this median. And so it seems a lot more involved than just this thing about, there's more involved than just preventing people from making that left turn.
Well, no, Trish, there is a median there and they talked about extending it.
Yes, I know. There is a median and they're talking about extending, but if we go to number 23, I don't know how.
Can we get that letter up? Is that possible? Because with number 23 in it.
And if it's a letter, I would like, and if it was responded to, I think we should refer to the last one where these things were discussed.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean,
Well, unfortunately, that letter didn't say it was open or closed. And so I appreciate again that we've been very careful getting things either closed or it's in our court to do something about. And unfortunately, I do not believe we received something from Ron Mueller saying that is closed. His last letter is basically silent because he ignored it, unless someone has something else, because I looked on those. So I feel like if there's certainly a way to make this condition pending fire department approval of how it's actually done. We don't have to say, I'm sorry, the fire department isn't here to ask.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we can make it, we can say that, what's the language that we usually use? We can essentially make it connected to fire department review. So I think that's important.
I guess I just don't understand the process. If our consultant raised an issue on the first letter of 3, the issue, somebody said it was responded, I guess in the second one. If he doesn't raise it in the third one, which is after he reviews everything that he has been receiving, I'm not sure why would we on our own bring it up since he's the consultant.
Well, you know that
Because
it's
he's saying
settled.
I think he's saying we should do this and there's no evidence it's been done. So
He didn't, I think he said we should consider it.
He did, and I am asking us to consider it. That's correct.
yeah, so.
But I want to understand the sequence, the timing sequence of the answers and responses.
So the letter's no longer up, but what it says earlier is the applicant was asked, the applicant responded, and the consultant is telling the town to consider doing this. And that's the back and forth, right? And I would agree that safety absolutely is important. And this is one of the reasons that why we're trying to get this right? This is like the key reason. So
But
I think
Tricia,
Yeah, what's missing here is a later letter where he no longer included this item. So it's unfortunate that we don't have the full history of why, but you know, he at some point closed this item out.
I close it as he said it's happening, or that it's no
No,
longer
as in
necessary?
it's no longer one of his recommendations in his final report.
well, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, I think we should look, you would think that in a sequential process of letters, the last one is the conclusive, right? Because it's gone through all what he considers we should consider.
So here's the thing. I don't feel good putting something out there that's going to put people at risk and could cause harm. And so what we could do is we could put language as a condition that the fire department has an opportunity to review this recommendation and that we would implement it pending fire department approval. Because I, for one, don't want to live with this concept that we could put someone at harm without addressing the safety point. If the fire department says it's not an issue, I'm okay with that. So let's
should
make it
we
conditional.
take all of his recommendations from his first letter? I mean, he's closed out many. Why are we picking this one?
So let's look at the later letter and really understand what he closed out. That's not really clear to me that he closed that item out. If it's
Well,
closed,
and
it's
that's
closed.
exactly the point. I don't think we have any way to know that's closed. You saw a bunch of comment resolved. I've never seen a letter with that comment resolved. Unfortunately, the last letter said, I think everything's cleaned up, but this. And, you know, we're humans, we make mistakes, right? That's where I believe that is not necessarily closed out. And I don't.
But Kate, you said that he thinks everything was closed. and
Yeah, I
he
have the
wrote it?
letter open here. It's the
Let's look it
letter,
up.
it's the third traffic letter. It's dated January 25th, 2023. And he writes, Ron Mueller and Associates writes, most of our comments have now been resolved to our satisfaction with the following exceptions. The first one is the site triangle and not letting vegetation go above 2 feet in height. The second one is about the RRFB light at the crossing. And the third one is about the trucks, the size of the trucks. So
And those, Tricia, were subsequently resolved, right? Because they were part of.
those three things are all in our current conditions. Yeah.
Okay, so these answers what I was getting at. At the end of the process, he is saying on his own words that to his satisfaction, everything is resolved except these three things. And these three things now are part of the process. So why would we be questioning his words on his last conclusive letter? I don't understand the process.
I fully agree with Kate that it's unfortunate that we don't have one where that line is specifically closed, and I think that's something we need to maybe try to
Marcello,
get
this
in the
is,
future. But
yeah,
I mean,
so
it was an option, and to me, when you look at the site plan, that driveway exit turns to the right, it's clearly marked, and it's, I mean, you guys have driven through there. You're not going to be able to take a left out of there anyways. Nobody's going to sit there and try to do that. Plus, it's the one place in town the police actually sit is in Honeydew Donuts, where they can see that and stop you.
Yeah, and I was getting into it from the point of experience, because of course we all have been in that side. So I just don't understand, having seen the final letter. I mean, I kind of my take on this is I'm trusting what the consultant is telling me on his conclusive letter. I really don't see the need to pick on this or that. I trust that he reviewed thoroughly the responses to what he asked, and he's telling us he's satisfied. So going over his last letter seems out of place to me. I mean,
okay, Marcello, like full disclosure, that third letter I asked for because we never got these things closed. I went back to 2 and I'm like, did I miss a letter?
I get it. No, and I totally get where you're coming from. I just think it from the point of process seems like a really weird precedent to do that kind of things.
Well, I mean, frankly, it was weird precedent that we got rushed to close the public hearing. And after multiple letters that we were somehow preventing a project from happening, right?
Well,
and so
let's not go there. Let's just finish the job we need to do.
Well, we are going to go there because that's what we're discussing.
Well, I don't think we are. I think we're going to stick with the topic at hand, which is.
It is the topic at hand, the process. We're talking about process, right?
We're not, that's not about the process. It's about this particular item.
And this particular item was obtained truly by Kate's efforts last minute so that we could properly close safety issues while we were being rushed. Let's get this done right.
Then okay, I agree with that, Anna. So that's what we're doing, and we have the letter in front of us. So why wouldn't we trust it?
So can we scroll up to the beginning of the letter, please, so that we can have a full understanding of the context for a moment? So he received supplemental material from the applicant based on the prior letter. What is our ability, Peter, to open the ability for the applicant to comment that in fact was satisfied? Do we have any ability today to do that?
You know, I typically know the hearing is closed, but if you want to you know, they probably.
My recommendation to Tricia would be on a safety item to consider reopening the hearing on this one item and truly making sure from the applicant that issue was discussed with the consultant. I think it's up to Tricia.
I don't think it's about reopening the hearing. I think it's just about asking a question. I think that's a whole different process of reopening a hearing.
That's fine. If we're allowed to ask the applicant a question, and I think, Jerry, you're muted, I think it'd be helpful to clear this up, that in fact, that particular safety issue was openly discussed with the applicant. I'd like to, with the consultant. I think if we have that on the record, it would satisfy at least me. I don't know about Kate.
Peter, I don't know the regulations about public hearing. I certainly don't want to be in violation of something or another
Yeah.
at this point.
But
You know,
can we agree that on the letter I was going through, can you put it back up, Tricia, for a second?
That was me.
Peter's
Oh, that was Peter. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. We were looking at the context. After the 2 bullets, there is a statement. Most of us have now been resolved to our satisfaction, with the following exceptions. That seems to me very declarative. I'm not a native English speaker, but why would we not trust this? I don't get it.
I think that's a reasonable reading of it. I mean, Kate, is that sufficient for you?
That is very much sufficient for me, you know, I
No,
think.
for Kate.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
mean, look, I work in construction. I see mistakes all the time from engineers, but I will move on. If that's the way the board wants to go.
I think in light of how that's phrased, I think it's reasonable. Let's move forward. It sounds to me like that
So
right there gives us,
This letter that is referenced, the November 29th, 2022 response from McMahon, it is on the website, and they do give additional information on this, where they discuss that they're adding striping and slightly changing what's the existing condition there. So, Ron Mueller did see more of an answer on this between the previous letter and this letter,
perfect.
referencing that he saw something in this letter and now saying that these are his only comments left. I wish
That
he
satisfies me.
put
I
the
think-
bullet and said closed, but
Yeah, no, I think in light of what Kevin found, combined with that language on that first page, I'm good with this.
Okay.
All right.
So at that point, I'm gonna go back to the decision. I'm gonna remove item number 13. And we can now move on to the new item, number 13, which is regarding the applicant is to require the town a written independent third-party verification that the installation of the lighting companies with the lighting lumens shown on the lighting plan. Again, Kate, would you like to talk to this one?
Sure. So I put the part that it doesn't have a date, but it does when you open up. I get old eyes and it's hard to see. So I just think it's not a big ask to make sure that's verified. That was a review saying the first round it was too much spilling over, and they redid the plan. So I think we just have to verify that third party.
How do you determine on site? I mean, do you shut off the streetlights? Like, how do you determine?
I mean, I think, Kate, are you suggesting some type of commissioning to go and do some like level measurement?
Yeah, it's not, I mean, this isn't rocket science and it's not super expensive. I don't think you get a light meter and you get some third party to verify that's the lighting you're getting.
But my question is, how do you know? I mean, there's also streetlights right there. So how do you know where the spillage is coming from?
We could take it before and after if you want to get technical about that.
Yeah, I get it, but I'm wondering, I mean, we haven't put this in any other.
Well, since I've been on the board, we haven't had anything that close to a household. I mean, I'll just be honest, like I maybe you have, but I haven't. And I do want to be sensitive as much as we can about these things.
And Kate, is this also from the Mueller letter or something
No.
else?
No.
I don't know what the I don't know what the cost for such a thing is. I guess I would be, open to testing the lighting along the neighboring property line. I don't think it's needed to take it all, if our concern is the light spillage onto the neighboring property, not onto Mexico City, not onto CVS, then let's be specific about the property line in particular and not overblow this.
Question, is there an actual lighting plan of September 30th that comments on spillage of lights in some fashion?
It shows the exact lumens that they're expecting. There's essentially
Okay.
the property line.
So, can we just edit the date? It's a little bit, it's got some extra digits.
Oh, yeah, it does.
And I mean, I would be satisfied with Trisha's edit so that it's a little bit more specific. I can see how narrowing it to the non-commercial side of the property makes sense to me. With no light spillage, how about no unreasonable light spillage to, because you're gonna have some, right?
But just say it has to match the plan. They gave a plan. It has to match the plan. That's what we're looking for.
Then maybe we can get rid of the with no light spillage completely and just stop at that it complies with the plan, right?
That would be
So,
more,
Kate,
that would be more clear.
Is your concern lumens or foot candles?
Well,
Because
I
lumens
think-
is what's emitted at the source versus foot candles, which is what that plan
heat-
showed, which talked about that.
It would have to be in foot candles, Diva,
I
because.
thought it was lumens, but we can check the plan and then put the exact.
Yeah, lumens is defining the light
Yeah.
emitting source at source. So that's different. So because you're talking about that complying with lighting lumen. So if your concern is about the spillage, so I'm guessing you're referring to the foot candles.
That's what the site plan would show. The
Yeah.
lighting plan would be show foot candles at the surface of the ground.
So how about we edit that to say that you're looking for compliance with the lighting plan, right? And then no unreasonable light spillage from whatever Deepa said, whatever the item is. Just make it a lot more
Just-
narrow.
Comply with the foot candles shown. Then if it's not lumens, it's foot candles. So shown.
Just say, how about just complies with the lighting plan of September 30th? Just
Yeah.
make it very direct.
Yeah,
That
the
makes more
units are
sense.
units are in foot candles. And really, you know, again, I don't think if we're gonna have them do this as-built lighting test, I think it's along the residential property line. You know, I mean, you know, hundreds of little marks here, and what do we, let's put the emphasis where it needs to be put, is my point.
I was trying to make it even simpler and just say that you're complying with the plan, the end.
Just kind of, who then reviews this? Who do they submit this to? Like,
Building
And-
inspector.
Just gets submitted to the bill. Planning
It would have to
office.
be the building commissioner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would take out with no lighting spillage entirely and just stick to complies with the plan, period. It's either gonna comply or it's not gonna comply. I don't think we can start down the path.
and I think it will be obvious. I mean, would it be worth it to say if lighting complaints arise from the neighbors that they need to do this rather than forcing them to do it?
I was
I
gonna,
don't know what it would cost. I don't know, but
I was actually gonna suggest that, Kevin. I think that this is more reasonable to require if there is a complaint. Because I'm with Trisha. I mean, I've done, I guess, millions of square feet of construction professionally, and unless there's a complaint, I don't think, I've never seen this done.
So how about we start the paragraph, just leave it alone, but start it with if there are complaints about light pollution by neighboring property owners, renters, however you want to phrase it, then this happens.
Upon any complaint by neighboring property owners.
Butters, because it could be a tenant, right?
Could be what?
It could be a
Yeah,
tenant, not an owner.
yeah.
Madam Chairperson, can I make a comment on this? Just because
Peter, is
It's up
that
to you.
appropriate?
It's up to you. It's
I
It's
think
what?
I can kind of make this a little simpler based on the conversation. At the end of the conditions, you have a very appropriate condition requiring as-built plans before an occupancy permit stamped by a licensed civil engineer. My understanding is those plans have to indicate that all aspects of the construction conform to all aspects of the approved plan. So although I understand the importance and would not minimize the lighting discussion at all, it really goes to every other aspect of the plan as well. And part of the burden of the applicant in terms of compliance is to get an engineer with a stamp to certify that what has been built conforms specifically with the plans. And so
Thank you,
I
Mr.
think, and that's all, I just wanted to raise that point because that's there as a protective device for both the lighting plan and other aspects of the plan.
Thank you, Mr. Efron. So in other words, we could simply add to that other condition, including the lighting plan. How about that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the comment is very appropriate because when you finish a construction project, the Massachusetts Building Code requires you to, as a professional, all the professionals in the team, not only the site engineer, have to submit a final control affidavit certifying that their scope of work has been constructed in accordance to the design. So it's not just the light engineer or the site engineer, the architect has to do it, the structural engineer has to do it, everybody has to do it, and that's part of the building code. So it is a by default requirement.
There's a difference between technical compliance to build a certain way and what Kate is suggesting here. There's a difference in context. The first is, was it built according to plan? Yes or no? This is more about unreasonable light pollution, which per bylaw, Kate is asking for a reasonable restriction of an independent opinion that this is okay. It's a little bit different from the question of, did you build per plan? It's independent review when there's a complaint. I look at this as very different.
Yeah, but I think there's a point here. I mean, you do have to put your stamp on that this is, and if the light, if the light is too much, there are zoning ordinances that it has to be checked, or it can be checked, you know. So yeah, I mean, I think we're, I don't know, just kind of going too far, you know, with this. So.
Can we?
I mean, I don't think it's too far for a planning board to think about drive-throughs and successful businesses and lights and neighbors.
Then that is what we are supposed to do, but we
I
also
think-
have to trust the Massachusetts building codes, which, you know, we kind of live and die by in our.
We do, but every community is
No.
different. To Deepa's point, you know, this is Ashland, not Route 9. So
Right,
I
but
think-
Ashland doesn't get to say what the light levels are.
I think we do, actually. I think that we can per bylaw consider some of those things like light and noise. They're right in there. I don't think we're prevented from those things.
Nuisances, but we're not allowed to vary as far as I know. I do not believe individual communities are not allowed to vary from the Massachusetts building code.
We're
Yeah,
saying
I
what the
think- I
light
think
levels are by
that's
approving the
good.
plan that shows the light levels. So like the engineer is then checking and confirming that that plan that shows the light levels has been achieved.
Exactly. I mean, this is pretty typical, and I get, Anna, what you're saying, but we're delving here into nitpicking about little aspects of the construction and not others. And I just don't know let's try to put our energy where the things that are, you know, part of the, you know, more the big picture. This is a more of a technical item, which is good that Kate brought it up. I think that the requirements of the law and how you do a project already take care of this, in my view.
Well, Marcella, what they're going to say is that, yes, they installed those lights. We don't have confirmation that that's going to be the light level after them, and no one's going to do that unless we ask. And I understand, you know, what you're saying, but I think what you're forgetting is we have projects like on my time living in Ashland that really didn't come out the way we wanted. And so you're operating on that everything goes fine. And I would like to believe that, but I mean, I think we should move on. Just
No,
forget
and
about it.
I get it, Kate, but then we could extend it ad infinitum on everything. We can go and try to measure how much water is shedding the parking lot because because what if that goes into the street? You know what I mean? I'm saying like there's a point why the building code takes care of these things, because you cannot just go and try to pick one of those and try to go and see if they.
But to Kate's point, not everyone
The
builds. to
one that
code.
affects the people, right? That's the one I picked on. Yes, I did, but I think we should move on.
I mean, to me, I don't think there's any harm in saying upon a high level of complaints that the town has the right to do this. But if Kate is okay deleting it, we can certainly remove it.
I'm fine putting in what we talked about before, upon complaint by an abutter, you know, or upon a verified complaint by whatever, because then it doesn't happen unless it's actually looked into in a reasonable, rational way, not by someone just trying to make more work or cause trouble, right?
No, you guys just remove it, move on.
Okay. So 13 is being removed.
The next item up says the applicant will be required to pay the costs associated with addressing traffic issues, including but not limited to police details. The town determined there are mitigation needs if a queue of a vehicle or access to the site is backed up onto Summer Street, or other traffic problems occur caused by vehicle entering in or exiting the site.
Again, I just think I think this is excessive. I mean, you get back up on that street sometimes because of the baseball game going on, or, you know, other events that happen there, you know, is that going to fall into, you know,
Can we make it much more narrow, like add a couple words that make it like addressing unreasonable traffic issues, determine that excessive mitigation is needed. Like add elements that make it more unlikely that it's going to apply. There's going to be traffic jams at this place once in a while when there's an event. That's not what this is written for. This is written for something truly disastrous that we don't anticipate, right? So let's make it that. With addressing unreasonable traffic issues, the town determines there are severe mitigations needed.
So if this is just super successful though, and like every day to get through there, you send a police detail. I mean, because we're going to have to for safety, and I don't think that's a cost the town should take. And we do this for other businesses, right? If there's we've had police details at restaurants because we think that maybe you know, they weren't properly enforcing liquor laws or things. We've had other businesses pay for traffic details, you know, as needed. So this is certainly not something that Ashland's never done. And what I want us to do is be thorough and get these out front, not, oops, I wish I had thought about that. And I just don't think this is unreasonable. I think some of the points you say, well, if it backs up, how do we know? But if there's people waiting in line to get there, you're probably going to know it's caused by the queue at the drive-thru. And I don't think the owner is going to want that either in the business. So I think I don't truly think that these are we're not trying to set up a police force down there. We're just trying to give the town some protections and townspeople that there's a way, if there's impacts from this business, that we addressed it without trying to figure it out later. We won't be able to go back later to do something like this.
yeah, I get that, but I'm a little, I'm okay maybe with some things like about police detail, but paying the costs associated with addressing traffic issues, you know, if we determine that traffic issues means that something needs to be done with the street, you know, or whatever, it's like, it seems almost like we're penalizing a successful business. And are we gonna make sure we penalize all our successful businesses if they cause problems? You know, is that, you know, or is that just living in a thriving town, right? So
successful businesses can help pay for the impacts of the community.
But
Does anyone know what happens at like Dairy Queen? Like that's the only place I can think of.
Dairy Queen
backed
has
up onto
gone
the
out to the
street.
road.
Right.
Yep. It's gone, I haven't seen it line up on the road, but it's
But does the
gone out
town
to
send a
road.
detail or does
Well,
anybody know
Kevin,
anything happens?
it's been very dangerous there and they haven't, because it's my side of town and they don't know. But I mean, I've had a car literally cross 126 like the wrong way. And so I know those things can happen. And
You know, I personally like this language. I don't think it harms to put it there. The town is not going to exercise this option unreasonably. The language is there to protect the town, and it's up to the select board and the police department to exercise that particular paragraph. I have no issue as a planning board member having that in there to protect the community. And most likely it's never going to be used. But how we interpret that is not really up to us. That's up to the select board and town council. So I think there's enough there that we're not being unreasonable. I personally would add addressing unreasonable traffic issues. There's going to be traffic, folks. This is a drive-through and it's going to be a successful business. So I'd like just that one word added with addressing unreasonable traffic issues. I
Yeah,
don't want
or
to address any traffic issue.
unreasonably backed up onto Summer Street, maybe in the next to last.
Yeah, exactly. If it's a couple cars on a, it's not necessarily a problem, right? It's
Yeah,
just
but
but then it wouldn't be implemented and no one's going to put a police detail.
But I
Right.
think going to the extent of creating an example is excessive to me. Like imaginary, because a line of cars did this. I mean, that's totally an imaginary situation. I think if we're going to do it, if there's something unreasonable, I think I would like to think that the cops would show up and tell the administrator what's happening here. But if we're going to say that there's something unreasonable takes place, then sure, I'll be okay with that. But without going to the extent of describing what it is.
Well, I mean, the word unreasonable becomes something that the town can then discuss with the applicant, right? If things get out of hand, the word unreasonable will offer protection to the applicant, because right now it just says traffic issues. Well, what the hell is that? Traffic issues to me is a reasonable person will agree that traffic means I'm frustrated, right? That we don't want that. We don't want anybody here fighting over frustration. This is the way this is framed. I think, Kate, what you're trying to do is you're trying to say if things get out of hand in a serious way where we need police detail to handle traffic, we, the town, don't want to be paying for that. We want some responsibility with this applicant. So it's a severe type of paragraph. So let's make clear it's so. Add the word reasonable next to traffic issues. I personally would add severe mitigations. Like that way, you're not really going to use this unless things get really bad.
Yeah, I agree. And then
remove the example after that.
I don't think we need an example. I think town council and police can figure that one out.
Exactly. I agree with that.
I don't think we need to, I think we can just, I like the way it's phrased. I would just add unreasonable right before traffic issues. And then I would add severe mitigations or unreasonable mitigations, right? Like the town has to go above and beyond what's reasonable, like abnormal,
Right.
like unnatural,
right,
kind of
beyond the
adjective there.
normal.
Yeah.
But what I was suggesting is like then it goes to give an example. If a queue of vehicles for access to the site is backed up, that's only one example. There could be other unreasonable things. So I would take that example out.
Right, period after the word needed and delete the rest.
Yep.
How about unusual mitigations needed? And what the reason I want to say unusual mitigations is, again, to Trisha's point, if there's a concert at Stone Park and people are queuing up to go to the concert and they're spilling over through Starbucks, that's when we might need some reasonable mitigation. We might need a police officer there, right? So,
but in that case, the concert should pay for it.
well, that's what
Yeah,
I
I
mean.
think you're alone. It looks pretty good, guys. It's just like,
Okay, leave it be. Move forward.
Can I ask a question? Because we didn't talk about it, just out of ignorance here. The Welcome to Ashland sign. What are the? How is the design going to be regulated? I mean, we just went through a bunch of designs for downtown with a specific type of sign. Is that going to be consistent with that, or is it going to be a completely new design, or what are the standards?
they're not doing it. It's up to the town. So I think we can make sure it's consistent.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we can add in there that we want it to be done.
No, I'm satisfied with what Kate said. If
Okay.
the town is gonna decide, the town can decide. So that's
Yeah, the
fine.
condition is just for them to allow us the space, so I
Okay.
think whoever
Mm,
comes
I
up
mean-
with the money gets to decide.
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
think we have jurisdiction as the planning board to say that we would like design review to be, to be part of that. We could do that.
You know, I think, can I just chime in real quick? I think that the process behind that, obviously, there's a very respected gentleman in town that carves wooden signs. There's a couple of them here in Ashland that say "Welcome to Ashland." They're typically blue with gold lettering and/or gold leaf lettering in between. So I think that was the idea, was to be able to add something at that apex that already exists in Ashland, that it has. So there's consistency, but also something that has some class and such, that so people know that they're coming to town. This wouldn't be a welcome to Ashland, entering Ashland on a pole. This would be more of a very similar to the wooden signs that you see throughout town. Welcome to Ashland.
It's not meant to be a big artistic endeavor. It's meant to be match some of the other things around town, to be consistent with other things we have going on. I don't think we need to put that in. I think we can, yeah, I mean, there's a whole design discussion, probably how big it is, how, whatever. I'm happy with the town deciding who gets that.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I think we can move forward.
The new number 14, I just want to make a note that this condition, Lisa Mead applies a very similar condition further on down the decision with these four. And here on applicability says this permit shall be in the conditions here within shall be binding upon the applicant and its successors and heirs. And so the language is, almost familiar, very much the same with this one here. And so I think I just want to make a note of that before we go any further. This condition again was added with comments from a planning board member, from Kate as a planning board member. So
Yeah, I mean, if town council added it in, I don't think we needed it added in twice, right? I mean, it's sort of different.
I agree. That's the way that's my frame of thought. Kate, you asked for this one. Do you
Oh,
concur?
yeah, I didn't see the town council one when I put it in, and
It came in after. So when I followed up with her on that last email within your comments, that's when she added a few things. So it is new, but I just want to make a note. You were thinking on the same lines as her. So if it would be appropriate, I could just take this out. Is that okay?
If it's already later, I think that's fine, right, Kate?
Yes.
Okay. And then the last note here is an 8-foot fence where there is a new fence. This
So
came up.
an abutter asked at least twice in writing, and perhaps maybe more times talking to the planning office. And I don't think we actually talked about this too much. So I think we have to do our best to be respectful of the abutters.
Peter, do you know if that abutter was that the one that shares the fence line with the?
So the abutter does not share the fence line. The abutter that has spoken twice, multiple times with me, does not share the property line with the site. I have spoken to the abutter as late as yesterday. They came by the office. They did write a letter, however, it was too late for public hearing, so I told them that. However, since we did talk about this request, I will say that the applicant amended the site plan and has extended the fence further along the back property line and has taken the corner on Summer Street and has brought the fence up to help, I would say, screen the four employee parking spaces in the rear of the site. And so I don't have a letter that says we have reviewed the new plans. However, I can confidently state that I have showed the new revised fencing plan to the abutter. And that's where it kind of was left. This did not come up in conversation yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a little hesitant about an 8-foot fence because it really feels like a crazy height barrier. I don't find them very lovely, it just always seems like you're building a prison versus something more residential scale. I mean, 6 foot, I think, is maximum for residential. So I've always been a little hesitant about 8-foot fences here and there.
So Peter, can you say that again? This is not what the neighbor was asking for? I didn't understand what you said.
So I think the question was regarding this comment did not come. The comment that this came, the origins of the comment regarding 8-foot fence did not come from a butter that shared the property line. This person was one lot removed from this site and/or locus.
Then I if that's the case, I don't see it appropriate.
And I will state with confidence that since this comment was received, the applicant has made modifications to the site plan.
Yeah,
to extend the fence. And
I remember that because that was a point of
turn.
discussion.
Yeah.
I think that extension was more important than this, and that was part of the plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm hesitant to have a 8-foot fence as well. I feel like there should be some division there, but 8 feet is a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't think headlights go over a 6-foot fence either, which is what we're shielding.
Kate, why are you thinking this is necessary? Because it seems a little bit high.
I want to be respectful of comments we received, and there were more than one. And then since then, someone who knows those abutters, I believe it might have been someone else. It's a family that's spoke up to them to me personally. I got a phone call about it.
Do they want a fence or an 8-foot fence? Because 8 feet is big.
Well, again, this is lessons learned. We don't close the public hearing for making decisions. We could try to get a hold of people, but it absolutely is in writing, an 8-foot fence. That's all I do know.
I mean, listen, a couple of people wanting an 8-foot fence has value. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm not clear that that's the visual we want in that. Like, I agree with Trisha that it creates this kind of overly cold feel to me.
Plus, I guess I would add, I agree, Anna, but I would add it could be also dangerous. I mean, it requires probably a structural bracing or something for wind loads, because the higher the fence, the more it's subject to wind loads and collapsing. So it's unusual.
Is there a sense of?
I think we should move on, and I would just request of us as a board to do a better job of dealing with these issues with respecting comments and applicants ahead of time, because perhaps Kevin's right, it was an issue about lights and we solved it, but unfortunately we don't even know that.
So let's err on the side of caution and not put it there if we don't know if we need it. Like, that seems, let's not create something that has an unforeseen consequence.
And remember that this 8-foot fence is a request not by a direct abutter. It's not by the person next door saying, hey, I run a business next door outside, or I have daycare kids playing outside. It's someone who's not a direct abutter, who's not right next to the Starbucks. So it seems a little random to me, for someone to ask for something that isn't even on the edge of your own yard. You're kind of making a decision for someone else's yard, which I'm not sure I'm comfortable with either. So
we have to do a better job of reaching out to people when they ask if we don't understand. And I think we should delete this and move on.
We can certainly always, as we go on to the very specific nature of these things, we find more and more ways of doing our job better. And I hope with every project, the process gets more smooth as we just all learn more, right?
I guess encourage people that have these type of concerns to come to the open meetings and express them so that we can actually discuss them.
Yeah, but we don't always have open public comment, nor do we have any notice for these hearings at this point. The public only gets notified, the butters get notified the first time. So, you know, unless we start setting timeframes as to when we take public comment, or that we're writing a decision and we actually have specific public comment for questions, it's kind of unrealistic. People are not going to sit there for 4 hours waiting to speak.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, everything would be scheduled perfectly and all questions would be asked perfectly, but for now, we do the best that we can.
We should come back to it at a retreat and figure out a better way so that, you know, as we're writing this on the spot, you know, this is the kind of thing that would be helpful to flush out with public input, and we just don't have it.
Peter, can you add after number 13, just for consistency, can you add traffic issues? You know how all of them have a kind of a title there? Thank you. All right, so we're continuing. These are all the general project conditions.
Yes, these are all general project conditions. And these conditions, I do not believe anything has changed unless highlighted. These are the 4 comments that were added by town council recommendation. Number 1 deals with applicability. Number 34 is the lapse. The site plan approval shall lapse after 2 years from the grant. That is very similar to the special permit process. The filing, obviously, this site plan has to be filed with the town clerk. And then obviously, then 36 is an appeal of this decision has to be done in accordance with MGL 40 section 17. That is the correct legislative section regarding any planning board and or zoning board review. And so I think those are all highly valuable conditions.
This town council, I'm good with it.
That's fine.
All right, with that said, this is the decision, and we have to vote. And before we vote, I just want to make note, we have the ability, we are the time crunch to file a decision with the town clerk tomorrow, because that was the extension that was granted by the applicant. And so therefore, and speaking with Tricia today, I have asked that that the planning board also allow Tricia to sign the decision. So therefore, I can get one signature, and then I can file this with the town clerk instead of collecting all 5 signatures from the planning board as is traditionally done. With that, I added a motion here, which will be part of the record as well. And so, is there any questions on that?
I think we're gonna owe Trish a lot of Starbucks coffee reward for that.
I'm actually not a Starbucks fan. I'm a Dunkin' Donuts girl, so.
All right.
But yeah, like I said, I am right. I'm walking distance, and I'm there all day. So, so it would,
I think that's fine. I mean, we can take a vote and then vote to agree that Tricia will be the person to sign for us. Should we make a motion?
What do we need to do first, Peter? Do we need to make a motion? We need a motion to approve the
I think we can make
as written.
We can make a motion to approve, and then we can also make a motion to allow you to sign the decision as a representative.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the 399 Union decision as drafted with the changes discussed today.
I'll second that.
All right, a roll call vote.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
Jersey guy.
Kevin McLean, aye.
I think it's Tricia's.
Yeah, I don't know who was voting. Trisha Kendall, I. Which
Yeah.
ones of us
think
count,
it-
Peter?
I think it's Kate,
Ah.
Anna, Marcel, and Tricia, right?
Yep, and you, Anna.
Yep.
Yep.
But not-
aye. No,
But
Deepa
not
missed.
Kevin, not Deepa, is that right?
No, Kevin is allowed to vote.
Oh, okay.
He only missed one meeting. He signed a multiple affidavit.
Got it. All right. So do you need to fill in those votes? Why don't you fill in those votes on here? Meanwhile,
Can you scroll down and I can read the other motion?
Yes, I can.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I make a motion to allow Tricia Kendall, Chair of the Planning Board, the authority to sign said decision as presented to the Planning Board on February 9th, 2023.
I'll second that.
and a roll call vote. Starting with Anna, I guess.
Anna
right?
Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcelo
Catherine
Hona, aye.
Jersey guy. Sorry.
Kevin McLean, aye.
And Trisha Kendall, I.
I heard you both.
I did too, in stereo.
Who seconded that motion? I'm sorry.
It was Anna.
Okay.
At least I heard Anna first.
The. Excuse me. Okay, with that said, I will be meeting with Tricia tomorrow.
Hey, Peter, I think, if you look under DEPA, you put NA and the NA says associate member.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, and I think we could change it. You maybe sometimes said or no vote cast, but maybe you don't want to mix them up. So just,
I'm just gonna put a absent or not during public hearing and therefore not eligible to vote.
Hmm. Yeah, so not present doesn't mean you weren't here. You weren't present enough, I guess, right?
Correct. Mhm.
Okay.
So with that said, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen
Oh,
and we can continue on with the rest of our meeting.
but I think you did have to keep filling in those Ys.
Yes, I am
Yeah.
doing that right now.
Okay.
Good evening.
All right, thank you. So I will get that signed tomorrow so that tomorrow morning, get it off my to-do list right away. So it is now 10 to 10. I do not want to go to 11 when we finally have a little bit of a break on these meetings. But I do want to see if we've already done the minutes. We've already talked about topics for future meetings. But there were a couple of things on here that might need some little updates, in particular, maybe comprehensive plan, maybe any ideas about town warrants, or anything else off the list that someone has been holding back on due to the length of our.
Could I
recent-
revisit the future meetings thing if you're speaking with the fire department before they come?
Yes,
We
yep,
ask them to maybe also speak on fire protection in some of these bigger buildings. I know that they obviously need to meet some sort of code, but if there's any preferred fire protection that they see or that they know works better, I know I've heard from firefighters, fire chiefs in the past that some of these newer, big wood-built apartment building structures are dangerous and scare them as people in the fire department.
Hmm.
Maybe possibly the state fire marshal told me that. But
But that's peculiar. I mean, the
like
Oh.
the one burned down in Dorchester 5 years ago during construction, right? But just I don't know if
I
it's
think
anything they
that
think about. It would be nice to hear if they know of
Yeah.
things they prefer to
That,
see.
that usually depends on whether the building is fully sprinklered or not. I mean, that's a matter of code on the NFPA code. So if it's fully sprinklered, I mean, this is not a preference. That's a
Or like extra
requirement. That's a-
firewalls or something. I don't know if we even see those in the plans, but
yeah.
some of these
But
bigger buildings.
just to say that that's not a preference of the fire chief. I mean, there's code regulations for all that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we'll, yeah, I mean, I think as we get close, like we know at our next meeting, we're meeting the Upper Charles Trail Committee is coming on. So if you have any questions about trails, be thinking about that in advance, you know, or if you have any advanced questions, we could, of course, forward them, I'm sure. And we'll make that announcement as we have, you know, these different groups or speakers come in, that we can kind of sort of prepare any questions we might have. But I'm hoping if our meetings get a little bit more open during the housing moratorium, maybe we can use them as really more educational opportunities and, you know, in this way. So, okay, so anything else for future meetings? Okay.
Yeah, the Conservation Commission, I think they fell off the plate. Well, rightfully so, we didn't have time, but.
Yep, they were always, I had that question to Peter. I don't think we answered it yet. Like, who should we reach out to, you know, about that? I see the chair of the Conservation Commission on CPC meetings, but I didn't know who maybe Becca is the person to coordinate with. I'm not sure. So
Yeah, I can. I'm at a shouting distance from Becca's desk at work, so
right.
and Tricia knows my office setup, so I can always set that up with Becca.
Okay.
And Kevin, to note, I'm speaking. I was with the fire department today, and one of the copies of conversation was this NBC News special that about lithium batteries catching on fire in apartments. I don't know if anyone else got that, but this whole idea of Tesla's lithium batteries, how they start, I think it's something that's going to be coming up more and more. I know, just not to go off topic, but just to note, you know, the fire marshals telling people, if a car's on fire, push it into an empty dumpster and shut the door, and let it burn out. And so I think that's something that we just need to all think about. But I'm sorry to get off topic.
All right. So comprehensive plan or town meeting warrants, anyone have? And do we need an update on the comprehensive plan or brief
very,
update?
very briefly, we have issued, the town has issued a call for volunteers for the steering committee. If you recall, there's two kinds of members, or I should say three types of members to the steering committee for the comprehensive plan. There's the kind of bigger, if you recall, there's kind of a leadership group that includes Kate and myself and select board members and and Pete and Michael Herbert. And then that particular group becomes part of the steering committee. The steering committee has individuals from town organizations and committees, plus it has precinct public members. So at this point, there's been reach out to the town committees and organizations, and the posting has been made on the town website, and publicity is out for precinct volunteers, for town general public volunteers. So I believe Mark Dessoni, who's on this call, has applied for the steering committee. Thank you, Mark, for your interest. So it's just something good for the entire planning board to be aware of and to get the word out so that we have a wide, diverse applicant pool for those positions. That would be really appreciative. And then we are also in the process of drafting the RFP for the consultant. And the next meeting that we have, the steering committee has not yet been finalized. The next meeting that the smaller group is having is going to be focused on wrapping up the RFP process or drafting up the RFP. And then probably in March, hopefully there will be a joint meeting with the select board and the planning board to hear on our final recommendations for choosing the steering committee membership. And the steering committee, I believe, has its first meeting set for May. So just a very, very quick update. Did I miss anything, Kate?
The only thing I would add is we've actually had quite a broad spectrum of applications. So I think the intent is on that joint meeting, we will be interviewing and picking, so it could take a fair bit of time just so people are prepared for that.
Yeah, I think the interviewing was going to be outside of that joint meeting, Kate, if I recall, and then we were going to come to the joint meeting with recommendations, but you're right.
Okay.
That process
Okay.
hasn't yet been
Yeah.
finalized. But there's definitely going to be a joint meeting where the steering committee will be officially wrapped up as far as membership.
Was that just spread on the town website, you said, or I just haven't seen it anywhere, so maybe.
Yes, what I can
look it up,
do
but-
is I'll forward to Peter. I don't know how we can distribute this. It's technically not related to, I don't know how to do it right, but
What's that?
it's on the town website.
I wonder if the
This is-
town could maybe social media blast it or something too, just. to make
Yes.
sure it gets a broad
You know,
reach.
what are you talking about? What's the question?
There was an email from Susan Robbie to us, Peter, that said, oh, I think she posted the flyer for volunteers on the town website.
Oh, okay.
So there's a link to the town website. There's a website you can go to and find it. It's also in Michael's town manager newsletter. But Kevin, I can send you that link directly. After
That's
the
fine.
meeting.
I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can send it to Peter and he can distribute the link.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was just thinking if I hadn't caught it yet, that other people
Yeah.
in town may not, so if the town, social media pages could blast it out or something.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
You asked about warrants, that was on there, and I believe there's some action on a tree bylaw. So I would, or I don't know about any, but some of the bylaws do have to come through the planning board anyway. And then I would assume that maybe that's something we would be interested in, even string or something.
Is that coming out of the sustainability committee? They reported on it several years ago, I believe, a tree bylaw. Do you know if that's coming out of?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's, I believe, sort of sustainability, maybe some other groups. So I don't know, I guess, I don't know if we want to reach out. Are we interested in co-sponsoring or just wait for the process? But we should at least be prepared, I guess.
That's coming out of the sustainability committee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's about them reaching out to us, and yeah, and for when they're ready, versus, in my opinion, versus us hunting for warrants, We'll leave it out
The
there
one
for
that,
someone else.
but the one that is kind of like in our purview that we've talked about before, I mentioned to Peter once, could we take advantage of this and maybe finally once and for all regulate our parking regulations so that we don't have to do these waivers all the time and get down to the reality of what the parking should be on the bylaw?
Are you talking about just the size of the space, or?
Yeah, the typical parameters for parking, because we end up always spending time on all these meetings going over the same thing, and it's kind of outdated. I guess that what we've concluded that, right?
I think Kevin had mentioned that somewhere along the line as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but something that we should look at and take care of if we want to take care of it. I think that is true. Like I said, I keep a tape measure in my car and I measure parking spaces now and then. I probably look really.
So if we're talking about just the size of spaces, I think it's doable. If we're talking about our parking, it's all over the place, and I'm not seeing that as super practical for like the Springtown meeting. Maybe if someone takes it on, I wouldn't be able to because the comprehensive plan. But I also want to caution people, cars are really just getting bigger, not smaller. So I think that might need some work as well before we just slice up the size of parking spaces.
Yeah, no, I think these are well, I don't want to comment. I think these are kind of small changes, and I would think that I think car sizes are going in both directions. Some are getting bigger and some are getting smaller, and there are fewer in the middle, maybe.
But that requires that change would require a vote, right?
That's a bylaw
Yeah.
change, that's go to town meeting. I think just to jump in, I think dimensionally, I think we can take a look at that. I think that's a fairly a lift that we can take care of.
Yeah, if it's not this
also-
one, maybe for the next one. I'm just
If it's
something
just
that maybe we can
dimensional,
work on.
I think we can kind of work on that. I know off the top of my head, a compact space is 8 by 15. a lot of the times, the applicant is requesting a 9x18 site, and we requested, our bylaws are for a 10x20. So I think that can be kind of.
Yeah, so and we might need to look at our, talk to the traffic consultant, get some
Yeah.
recommendations, because I think also those spaces also are in conjunction if it's a double loaded.
Yeah.
Double with the aisle in between, like
Yeah.
they all work together. So, and
Yeah.
that's where some of the things become unclear. We're just looking at parking and not how wide the aisle is.
No,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I can reach out to a traffic consultant. I can reach out with an email to Ron to see if he can weigh in. That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
And I think getting into compact spaces would be too deep because you'd have to then address each zoning district and say what number of compact spaces you're allowed there,
mhm.
rather than just defining compact space. Everybody will want all their spaces to be compact.
Could
Can I
we
make a
start with
Can I make a
sorry.
suggestion? Sorry, go ahead, Marcel.
No, I was just saying, could we start with a recommendation from, or maybe a memo from our consultant and see, and just the broad aspects.
Broad brush.
yeah,
Yeah, I can take care of that.
about more modern kind of views on parking.
Yeah.
Anna,
And I
did
know
you
we
have
waste
something
a
you
lot
wanted
of
to add
time
to
on
it?
it, but it's not always the worst bargaining chip to say, well, turn that extra space into something green and not your.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say, sitting relative to the comprehensive plan, that is a multi-year process that is really, the word that keeps coming up is aspirational, right? Like we as a community are going to create goals for 10, 20 years down the road. If we do it well, at the end of the process, we may have a separate implementation team that will brainstorm zoning changes. And yet we are a town with the town meeting model. So technically at any point in time, we as a community can create zoning changes. And I think the planning board is in a great position to do that. And we certainly should not wait for a multi-year process to do that. And there's so many things like the building moratorium and the various pressures in our community that need to be addressed more urgently, more immediately. And the one thought I had is that we should probably form a subcommittee to start brainstorming those things as a planning board to figure out what can we contribute to those kinds of discussions, so that rather than waiting for town meeting where we're like, oh, we've got a couple weeks to bring something to town meeting. We don't really have time for that kind of last minute drafting of zoning changes. And my suggestion would be that we form a subcommittee that we have semi-permanently as a planning board to work on some of those things and actually be prepared for town meeting when it comes up.
I think that is a good idea. Knowing the things I have asked for recently for volunteers and what are people already committed to, I don't think we have anybody who can do that at this time. So, realistically, I had asked for some input on sustainability, and how hard it was to get some people to commit to a short-term thing. So I'm just not sure. I think we should be keeping this on our agenda. And as people come up saying, that should be a warrant that we work on, that should be something we work on, we should keep possible town meeting warrants on our agenda, at least at the present time. But unless I see a hand raised, I don't think we have manpower right now for a subcommittee on this. So.
Can I throw out another one that I think I was the one who asked to put this on the agenda, but I think, so accessory dwelling units, we have a bylaw that's basically very strict about relatives only. And I think a reasonable, easy change to propose that you can have an accessory dwelling unit. I would like to see, and I know through, for affordable housing, there's lots of options to say, can we get those counted for affordable housing? That is a different avenue. Like I couldn't even get DHCD to pick up the phone. I just let it ring. Now we have Emma, so maybe we could, right? But so we could go one step at a time, which seems to be the way that we've seen successful with the public and convincing ourselves we're not biting off too much. So could we consider an option to change the accessory dwelling unit to be just allowed by right under basically the same parameters it is now?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with that bylaw. Actually, I have an accessory dwelling unit that's a current project right now. So I've been through that process with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I understand that bylaw very well. And I think it's very possible. I think it fits in with inclusionary zoning. We certainly talked, not inclusionary zoning, housing for all. Ashland, when we looked at the housing production plan, that was a component of it, like as an easy way to kind of promote, create affordable housing by these little units. Obviously that's, would have to have a public hearing to get public input on that. But that's at least a piece of the puzzle that is familiar to me, and I understand I could look into it, a bit more. So.
Well, I think that's doable, that incremental change, not try to see if we can also get the affordable. I would like to see about that, but I don't think we need to wait for that to say, could we propose?
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you that I think these accessory dwelling units are kind of in their nature kind of affordable housing, because they tend to be, they're only 800 square feet, right? Max. So that's not a big housing unit. So
maybe if we keep this as an ongoing item on the agenda year round and allow members who have time, if they're willing to prepare a memo with a suggested change for zoning, that we can actually have a discussion as a planning board from time to time on that, because I think that is part of our jurisdiction, and we should exercise it and explore it.
I think it'll be things that pop up that members particular interest or passions about.
I can say one of the things I've been thinking about is, and I think I raised this with Trisha, this idea of talking about the downtown zoning and we're looking at it anew, is something that's of an interest to me. I think that some of these things are semi-urgent because we're changing as a town. It's kind of happening to us without a lot of empowerment from the community. And I think we as a planning board can change that. We can actually take a peek at those things and start to draft those things ourselves when we have time.
Is there any way to have like an interactive part of planning board website that we can call it like work plan and even let the public propose things? And it doesn't mean if they're going to propose it, we don't have time, but like I don't see the harm in collecting it. I would love to hear more. And we have been making, the applications for that steering committee are tremendously more than we would have thought, or I was hoping for. So
that's great.
But I feel like when we are allowing the public to interact more, we are going to get that interaction. So if we could figure out a way to make that interactive on the planning board, call it zoning work plan, and let people write in. And make sure we explain that we don't know if we can do this and how and when.
It's like a suggestion box, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that there's an assistant town planner that is starting at the end of the month, right, Peter?
That is correct.
Peter, I'm pretty confident in saying is not a website guy, but maybe, what's his name? The guy. Alvaro. Yeah. Maybe Alvaro, being of that young modern generation, maybe he is. And maybe that's a question you can ask him the very first day in the office, Peter.
We also have the design review committee, and we talked to them in our mutual retreat about the importance of special projects that we want to give them. And I know that I think they'd be excited by something like this. I think maybe they can be our go-to to say, hey, we want you to come to us with the top 10 zoning changes that you believe would be good for us to think about. And we want you to spearhead a collection of the idea box from the public. So we can certainly assign that, if you will, to design review to do for us if they're interested.
I know even that their last agenda had things about bylaw changes on it. So it might be things that they are interested in. And just to comment on that, I had sent a further email, and this is more skipping down to design review committee. I had sent a separate email to Kathy Rooney about maybe checking in somehow between myself and her, chair to chair, maybe with Peter and Alvaro when he starts, that we're kind of checking in on agendas, because I think that coordination piece, again, something went amiss, right? With the coordination piece, obviously, I don't think the design review committee knew that we had closed the public hearing. We didn't know that they were intending to discuss it again, right? It unofficially, I guess. So there's definitely a coordination thing that's still happening. And I thought, hey, if maybe we can coordinate at least talk through our agendas before a meeting, like this is what the planning board is going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be seeing this project for the first time. Maybe you guys want to listen in, not participate as the design review committee. I think they have to do that in their own space, but listen to what the planning board is saying about it, understand our questions, so they're familiar with it. They're familiar with our voices on it. So things like that. And meanwhile, looking at their agenda so that, I mean, Peter keeps all the legal stuff. I set the final agenda as the chair for the planning board, but Peter tells me, look, Trish, we have to do this because otherwise we'd be in violation of whatever, to make sure we keep everything, all the legal stuff as it should be, right? But right now, I don't think the design review committee has that same piece. And they're not as obviously regulated as we are. But it still might be a way to help the two groups to work a lot better together.
Absolutely. We had talked about putting something on paper for applicants and the public, kind of step by step to a project. And I did find something like that another community did, and I sent it to Peter. And I'm hoping we can use that and you may find that helpful, Tricia, because we can take that one piece of process document and add design review elements to it so that it's very clear both to the applicant, to us, and to design review, step by step. What are the statutory timeframes when an application is made, and where does design review come in, in a visual way? So I think, Peter, you may find that page very helpful, and maybe we can review it next time and have design review look at it and agree, is it accurate? Does it need to be edited? It might be a little bit outdated. A different community did it in Massachusetts. But I keep thinking about that meeting we had with them, and we had some to-dos that I think kind of fell by the wayside, and we should probably regroup with them and see what do they recollect that we need to do. I recalled that we were going to agree on a written process.
Yeah, in any case, that would be a good idea. Did anyone, I'm just looking at the list, and I don't want to take up all the time for the design review committee, but is there anything else that anyone wants to jump in on? Because I am ending this before 10:30. At least
I have a couple kind of small things, like it was about correspondence to planning board. So there was 24 Tower Road. I think it's T-Mobile, but I might have that wrong remembering. They sent something like it has to be a determination of the National Historic Preservation Act. That came to the board email and it had my name on it. So I don't know, that's a little weird. And I did forward that to the Historical Commission, and I might have responded, I can't remember because it was a little bit ago, to them as not the clerk, telling them if they didn't get it in front of the Historical Commission, they should. But I don't know, again, it was weird because it had personally my name on it, even though the email went to the board. So am I responsible for dealing with this, or do we have to determine as a board?
What was it about?
It's about, so there's a cell tower at 24 Tower Road. It's actually, I went up their site visit. It's a concrete water tower. It's existing cellular infrastructure on the tower and around the surrounding area. And the letter was particularly about the National Historic Preservation Act 106. And so I guess, I mean, I believe owe some response. And I didn't, because I don't know, it's existing cell structure. So I know there's probably not too much we can do about that, but they sent it out saying.
Peter, I think he was trying to get in.
Yeah, so Kate, I did talk to this person from EBI. So EBI sent that letter, and obviously you are the website, on the website, you are the clerk, and therefore that's why it was addressed to you. And came across that. It is due to the age of the structure. It is the age of the structure, I think is, I don't know the exact date, but that's why we got that. The note. In addition, that application, I spoke to the applicant. I think they were they sent that letter a little bit early. And because number one, they have a lease that actually structure is owned by the town. It's property of the town. It's part of our water infrastructure. And so with that said, we, the town, have a lease agreement with AT&T on that. And so at this point, we have not signed off on any modifications to the existing cell tower and or equipment on that cell tower. And then I also put them in touch with our DPW and our structural engineer that need to review all changes regarding town-owned property in relationship to what cellular communications are doing to our property, on our property. So therefore, I did take care of it. I have talked to them. They are going through the process. So we can talk about it. We can put it on our agenda, but we did receive that because of the age of the structure. I just want to make note of that.
I mean, I just wanted to make sure it was taken care of one way or another. I don't think we need to talk about it. And then maybe on that same thing, but we received a comment that was sort of the flavor you would think the clerk would take care of, but unfortunately it was a little bit, it specifically asked a question, and I'm not authorized as the clerk under our generic one. So, and then the person, followed up and said, I'm waiting. And that is the reason we respond. We want people to know their email was received and considered. So I think probably I'll just kick that back to Peter. That one about specifically was asking about, it was asking about like washing facilities and the structures, new apartments, which I think is just a fair question about how these things impact the community.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of an odd.
I'm happy to respond. I saw that email.
Okay.
I'll respond tomorrow to that. That's not a big deal.
Okay.
I think, to tell you the truth, I think it's a great point.
It is.
And I'll throw out there, anytime we get comments that smell like planning comments, meaning like, why can't this community do X, Y, or Z? I think we should encourage those folks to apply for the steering committee for the comprehensive plan, because clearly these are public folks that are interested in big picture thinking and planning, and we should encourage public participation that way, which is very constructive, right? Not that writing to us is not important, but sometimes I feel like there's not much we, the planning board, can do about some of these comments. And, being part of a comprehensive plan process and zoning changes, et cetera, is a very valuable thing to tell people, hey, this is something that you can actually do. Like, please be part of that. So I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe we can come up with a generic language, Pete, that says something like whatever you normally say. And then, by the way, if you care about planning, consider volunteering for some of our boards and committees and get involved in the comprehensive plan.
I think we can add that, put a link into Kate's response to the town bank form. I think that would be
Exactly
to do. The comment surrounded, and I don't know if everyone saw it, but it just pretty much said that I hope the planning board was looking at the implementation of laundry facilities in big apartment buildings, and because he feels like laundromats in Ashland are being overcrowded.
So were you finished, Peter?
I'm done. Thank you.
Just a couple more things before we wrap up. I'm going to be taking inclusionary zoning off of the list for the present time. The inclusionary zoning committee, though we may be continuing to do some research, we're going to be on hold with that until the comprehensive plan gets deeper in their discussions. We think those two are related, plus with the housing moratorium, we're going to be waiting to get more of those results before kind of coming up with something else with inclusionary zoning. And the other thing was the CPC. I did talk to the CPC about funds for scenic road trees. Can't do it. There's no bucket that fits in, because there's just no bucket for it. But on the other hand, there is money sitting in the bucket, and a substantial amount of money really, for affordable housing. And so they look for ways that this can be used. And so the planning board should keep that in mind as well, you know, because it's not just about, they're kind of flexible about how that, I think about how that gets used, as long as it fits in with the rules, you know, they want to be able to use that money to provide affordable housing. So
That
that's
might
just-
work well with accessory dwelling funding, Tricia, because a lot of times accessory dwellings can benefit from financial support. So we can, or tax incentives. There may be ways to do that legally.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's definitely ways, because other communities, I looked at, they give tax incentive to elder people and help them stay in their home. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely.
and it could be used in larger projects as well. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So that money is there. And I'll have to find out more about that. Also, I think MBTA Communities is going to be able to come off, right, Peter?
That is
Because-
correct.
Meaning,
We paid out that money.
Latest update of that, because I know it changed and I know we had to send something in, but I haven't really.
So we did send, I took care of it. It was really kind of paperwork, and it was kind of a plan of attack. And our plan of attack is we're doing a master plan. And so, you know, I talked a little bit about how we can change some of our underlying zoning. But obviously the other big part is we're doing a master plan, and we're going to take that into consideration as we move forward. So currently to date, we are in compliance with the MBTA zoning. And at this point, our next action step is to continue the planning process, which I think Kate and Annie, you know that we're doing. And then we can kind of move forward. Zoning does not have to be in place until January 1st of 2025.
so are we in compliance as is, or we're not in compliance and need to change zoning?
We are in compliance right now with the legislative action. If you would apply the guidelines, no, we need to alter our zoning bylaws.
So
So
that probably has to be, like, this is probably not the whole planning board, but it just, our RFP about the comprehensive plan, I don't think specifically mentions that right now, so we do have to update that, I think.
The RFP.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We can,
Okay.
we'll have to discuss that, I think, at the RFP.
No, but I mean, I just wanted to kind of mention that has to be.
And
All right, and then was there any comments with that? And then the last thing I think is future retreat date. I think as our load gets a little lighter, we can schedule another one of those. I don't know when it's going to be at this point, but maybe, you know, maybe March would be good. We can look at.
I would suggest it's a great idea, and we should maybe partner that with the fact that we have a new assistant planner and we
Good
have
idea.
some to-dos with the design review. Maybe it should be kind of a mutual session so that we can have 1 hour, just us, the planning board, I think needs to work through some items like posting public comment on the website, you know, what are our goals this year kind of thing. We haven't had our own retreat yet. And then maybe we can do a meeting with the new assistant planner and connect it to like whatever we were supposed to do with design review. Let's wrap it up. I think we were going to create like a document and all this stuff we were going to do. I would suggest a March retreat is a great idea.
Yeah, we'll look at it in March and then figure out what the format will be. I haven't given that a lot of thought. So, okay. And we'll figure out dates. there.
Can I say one thing only because it took me a long time to get to it, but I finally did send out that memo about planning with the public. So
Yes, thank you.
in case it just got through, you don't have to read it, but I want to tell you it's there.
I actually did read it, but until you mentioned it, I forgot that you had sent it. So seemed like it had a lot of things in it that'll be useful for the comprehensive plan process and a lot of things that we've done. I thought actually, hey, maybe we don't do these things often enough, but we have done a lot of these things. So maybe we need to make them more routine. So.
And you guys, I have to apologize. I have to step out early today before 11 p.m.
No.
So I'm going to drop off the call unless I'm needed for another vote. If you don't mind, Tricia, with your permission, I'll depart just because I have a family issue I got to take care of.
I am taking a motion to adjourn right now.
Okay, I'll
So,
second it.
All right.
All right.
Assuming that no one has anything else, we're good.
Yay.
All right, roll call vote, Deepa.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Marcelo Hona, aye.
Catherine Jersey guy.
Kevin McLean, aye.
And Trisha Kendall, aye. So 10:30, we made it. Woohoo.
All right.
And
Have a good night,
everyone-
everybody. I'll see you at the next planning board meeting. And Trisha, I'll touch base in the morning.
Yeah, I'll see you in the morning.